Book 3. County. Somewhere deep in space, unseen to the naked eye or even the best Mechion telescopes, a second small machine with alien markings silently crossed from one part of the galaxy into the other for the first time, once again with no one there to actually see it. Only this time it was a very different vehicle created by a very different race. Even in a known galaxy inhabited by a whole 10 separate species, it was obviously alien, made of a type of mineral quite unlike anything that had ever been seen in this end of the galaxy before, and hewn by sophisticated technological experts into shapes and colours hitherto undiscovered. Having crawled across this milestone, something on the device clicked, and a small flag shot out into space, along with a fanfare and a recorded message full of claims of having this space occupied by kingdom and empire. It was an angry flag of a spear dripping with the orange blood of its owners. Had anyone been around to see it, they would no doubt have been worried about this stray newcomer arriving in a universe still so new that life had barely had time to meet and say a few words of welcome. After all, this little machine was not here to bid hello, but to wage war. As yet, though, no one had noticed it, lost as it was against the vast backdrop of space, bleeping its way into the infinite silence. For a while, as the machine hung there hugging the stars, the universe was safe. But it wouldn't be that way for long. Somebody was bound to notice it sooner or later. The people behind the machine were clearly counting on that. Freedom and liberty came with a countdown now, and little did they know it, but the 10 species in the known part of the galaxy had only a finite amount of time left before an 11th came to join them and disrupt their way of life forever. I was in my office a few hours later, or at least I was in the doorway of my office, as that's all I could fit into. Waiting for me, not exactly patiently, were more Belobrats than I'd ever seen together in one place in my whole life, each of them expensively dressed. I opened the door, and they all began talking to me, incessantly, at once.
President Eleron, a word in your Mrasianbrat ear about your new tax proposal. I'm sure you could find a way to make exemptions for the stinkingly rich while making up the deficit from the poor, who of course are merely stinking. Please come and judge our beauty contest, Eleron, even though I know I'll win it. My 3 arms and heads look amazing in a bikini. I've always wanted to meet you, Intergalactic President. The honour is all yours. It was my vote that won you the election. Aren't I wonderful? Quick, sign this autograph so I can auction it. With 4 weeks at once, please. It's quicker. You're my 15th favourite president ever. After all the Belobrats, of course.
I slammed the door quickly. Horace, I said to my passing vice president, who are all these awful people, and what are they doing crammed in my office? Horace stared back at me.
Ask your wife, sir. She said it was official business. I believe you're the Waddington Smythe Belobrats you agreed to have round when you were both in my office, sir.
Oh, I said. Well, I meant in the future, not right now, today. That seems awfully quick. If that was a Mirage shuttle, it would barely have left our solar system by now. If it was an Earth shuttle, they would barely have left the driveway.
Belobrats have some of the fastest shuttles in space, sir,
Horace replied. Eglo came down the stairs at just that moment, even more expensively dressed than the guests, and doing her best to make a grand, yet nonchalant gesture, her 3 arms moving in a regal sort of wave, before finding to her disappointment that no one was here.
Oh,
she said, her face falling.
I thought I had visitors.
I jumped my wing at the door. Anything to do with you, Eglo? I asked innocently.
Oh, yes, she beamed. Silly things. They've got lost. These are some of the greatest dignitaries from Hemisphere. I've been dying for them to meet me. And you, of course. You can spare a few minutes, can't you, husband dear? You don't have any important work on, do you?
Only running the universe, I replied. Eglo made a peculiar Mrasianbrat noise with her tongue.
Oh, that can wait. But this is really important.
Before I had the chance to reply, I'd found myself yanked inside, with a glass of Belobrat wine thrust in my wing, as everyone crowded around. Well, Eglo mostly. I seemed to be something of an afterthought now that my wife was in the room. It was easy to see why I might be overlooked. My office was small enough with just me in there, with 7 Belobrats as well. It was positively stifling. All of these noisy guests then proceeded to tell me their life story, at once. Even Eglo, whose life story I knew as well as my own. The ladies prodded and poked me while interrupting themselves and each other as they all fell over themselves to tell me how brilliant they were. As for me, I just fell over. A lot. That's what you get with 7 swinging tails going round and round the same room.
Eglo, what a lovely place,
One of the Belobrats was saying.
Of course, it's not as lovely as our place on Helisphere. My husband's the mayor, you know. We designed it ourselves, you know. People have flocked from around the universe to come and marvel at it and tell us how brilliant they think it is. My house is bigger,
Chimed in another.
My wife's the governor. There's 18 stories, 10 kitchens and 11 bathrooms. Not that I ever use them, of course. They're all for show and kept sparklingly clean. I have an outside loo instead. Well, I'm the head of a council,
Said another Belobrat with a sash that read,
Vote for me, I'm worth it.
emblazoned on the front.
And I built my own house using my own 3 pairs of hands. It's a marvel. I suppose I can rely on your support in the new election. Well, I'm directly descended from Queen Bella herself,
Said another, clutching her pearls.
I don't need a house. People are so grateful to have me in their vicinity that they invite me round any time I like. How about you, dear? How many stories are there in your home?
She asked Eglo, who flushed at this question. They both knew full well the houses on Mars expanded depending on the amount of residence you had, rather than the income you earned. My wife was the first ever off-worlder born on Mars, I said, coming to her rescue. She's become a great asset to our planet and is hugely respected. Eglo beamed.
Oh, I don't like to brag too much about my lineage, though I do come from 2 very distinguished families from 2 very different planets, in their own way. Not like your husband,
Said one dismissively, lowering her voice to a whisper that was still louder than any tone I'd used all day.
He's not one of the original Ronalds, is he? Oh, no,
Said Eglo quickly with the truth, before realising she probably could have made it sound a little better.
just a Ron. I married him for his ambition, not his money or his heritage. Look where it's got me, the most important being in the universe, one of the 2 most important beings in the universe.
She corrected herself.
He's quite small.
Half whispered another loudly in my ear.
That is a problem,
Replied Eglo, trying her best to look noble.
but one I do my best to overlook for the good of the universe. What about your home, dear?
Said the first Belobrat to Eglo.
Shall we take luncheon in your upstairs rooms? I'm sure they're palatial. And warm. No!
Said Eglo a little too quickly.
What I mean is, we're having yet another extension fitted that's nearly the size of a planet, and I would hate you to see it when it wasn't absolutely perfect. What sacrifices we all have to make for our careers, what? That's strange.
The second Belobrat.
I don't remember seeing any large room when our palatial shuttle went past earlier.
I decided that it's about time I took control of the situation and started thinking on my feet about what an opportunity this could be. I'm considering organising an auction, or perhaps a raffle, I said, for charity, to help make a start on solving all the awful income inequality out there. I know how all of you ladies like to be generous. I'm sure you'll all want to take part and show just how wealthy you all are.
Well,
Said the Belobrat nearest to me.
that depends, dear boy. What income inequality are we talking about?
Earth's got the biggest problem, I say, warming up to one of my specialist subjects. Do you know there are some families on that planet so poor that they can't even afford food replicator machines? They're starved of gluten, poor things. While some of their millionaires live off orbit on their moon in fancy mansions. I really want to get something done about it, but the Earth has left the IPO, so they can make their own rules, sadly. That doesn't mean we can't get money to those who really need it to survive, though. The Belobrats look a bit confused at this.
Oh no,
Said the third.
we couldn't possibly support a cause like that. Oh no. Why, Ron Helly, that's their problem, not the universe's. It would be like giving our money away. Humans would probably only spend it on something they didn't need, like central heating or escapism. I say their lot in life is their fault for being born on such a backward planet. Their parents should have moved to Helisphere before they were born, where the roads are paved with gold, the houses with silver, and the trees with aluminium.
I continued, but it's not really their fault. No one can help being born where they are. That's just a quirk of fate. And I really want to bring up the Belobrat's immigration policy with someone one day. That rule about not allowing any alien onto the planet with less than 2 heads seems really speciesist to me.
I don't know about what.
Mused another.
It's cheap enough to get a shuttle flight to Helisphere.
Not on an Earth salary, I point out. Trying another tack, I ask. Surely it wouldn't excuse them, at least for food they need to eat. Some of them can't even afford bread,
Let there be Belobrat cake then.
said another.
Funnily enough, that's the line of business my family are in. That's cheap enough on import, with a few raised export taxes to our advantage thrown in, of course. Then we could make more money at the same time and get the food they need. You'll do something about trade on Mars too, won't you?
Asked another.
You all be building up, you skinny, ugly little things.
That's not really what I start, but all the Belobrats are joining in now, including Airglow.
What a wonderful idea, Eleron. You'll start a trade deal with them right away, won't you?
At this, everyone in the room started getting out business cards and handing me parts of a very sticky cake substance, which, despite my protesting, I did try. It was wretched. Far too rich for my tastes. Too many ingredients had been stuffed into it, with multiple flavours competing with each other, which did seem to be the Belobrat way, I had to say, and I thank my lucky stars that Airglow had never shown the slightest interest in the delicacies of her spare home planet. This was typical of the universe, I thought. Those who had the power to help those who needed it never had any sense of the bigger picture. I sensed that whichever species had been in my office right then, the result would have been the same. Deep down, when you got right down to it, nobody really wanted to know the arms, wings or hooves reaching out for help, as long as they weren't reaching out with theirs. Slightly disappointed at my reaction, the illustrious throng had plainly decided that the conversation was at an end, as they all moved on to discuss the easiest way to move money between bank accounts to avoid paying taxes, and how clever they all were to think of it. I spent a most miserable evening trapped between Airglow and the door, drinking the Belobrat wine which seemed to be made from thistles, and badly scratched my throat, desperate for them to leave, which they finally did several hours and multiple anecdotes later. At least Airglow was happy though, so maybe it was worth it. She'd so loved being the centre of attention from strangers, even though for me it was attention I could quite happily have lived without. She positively danced away up the stairs afterwards and floated her way into bed, which for a second time I was allowed to join her in.
Oh, Eleron,
She said,
wasn't it the best night ever? Oh, and even better news, the Wallington Smiles can all come again tomorrow.
"I'll be out," I said, as quickly but naturally as I could, and vowing not to go anywhere near my office. "The whole day. Important business to attend to. Sorry, maybe some other time." But Airglow was smiling too much to have noticed or cared. Even so, I woke up the next day in a really good mood. At last everyone was happy. My wife, my colleagues, perhaps the whole universe was secretly smiling down on me. Today was going to be different. Today was the day I was going to get on top of my job. With Airglow's much-needed words of praise still ringing in my ears, I rolled over and out of bed, getting ready for a hard day's work ahead of me. Passing the canteen for my breakfast, I saw Airglow in deep conversation with Horace. I waved a wing in greeting, and then stopped halfway through. Airglow was almost literally frothing at the mouth. I ducked as a cold, hard, soggy lump I half recognised as a Belobrat delicacy whistled across the air towards me, making impact with a food replicator machine that churned out record amounts of Earth cereals instead.
What is the meaning of this?
Demanded Airglow, as she quickly disappeared from sight in a sea of wheat flakes, which blew up clouds of dust every time she moved. I struggled to turn the machine off, while trying my best to pay attention to her, accidentally setting off a long stream of milk that piled up in lakes beside it.
What did you do to those machines, you dratted Humrasianart?
Airglow complained. "Alexa, they were all safe," I stuttered. I thought they were all fixed, or I'd never let anyone go near them, honest." Airglow, though, couldn't be soothed.
My beautiful, beautiful face, my delicate features, my marvellous dress ruined, and my posh guest due again any minute, you hulking great good-for-nothing Humrasianart.
She continued as the replicator continued through its cycles of Earth breakfast dishes. I moved on to porridge.
How can you expect to run a universe when you can't even get the food in one establishment right? Look at you, you're hopeless.
The machine chose that moment to start firing bananas out into the ether as I desperately tried to catch them.
What on Decreeta do you think you're doing? Give it here!
With one firm kick, Airglow killed the machine, which fell over in a great ancient sigh. A pool of porridge licking around its sides.
This is Too much, Eleron,
said Aglo as sternly and seriously as she could in a dress dripping with earthly food items.
I'm the president's wife. I'm entitled to better. And you're the president. The buck stops with you. But then, what's the point in talking to you? I'd be better off talking to the new cleaner from Earth when they arrive. At least they do something practical and useful.
She snorted.
Clean up this mess. And I mean you, not one of your underlings. They have better things to do. I'm off to give another interview, a more direct one this time, to the international media.
And she stormed out of the room, leaving Horace and I looking at each other. Sorry, was all I managed to say.
I'll get you a walk, sir.
Horace deadpanned. Once everything in the canteen was so clean you could eat your dinner off it, which was just as well, given this was how the Glabdhardites tended to eat theirs, I tried hard to get back to work. But somehow between that incident and a boring pile of papers querying seating plans at conferences and terminology of contracts, my eager mood from earlier in the day had dissipated. While I was working, I thought back to how Aglo and I had first met all those years ago, the relief of finding that I was not alone out there, the only half-breed on Mars. How much fun we had had together after the universe had seemed to grow sombre overnight with all the deportations going on. The way she had made me feel special, the buzz I had got from speaking to her, the thrill I had felt when I had finally plucked up the courage to ask her out on a date to the Universal School dance, and her acceptance of my offer, as if it was the most natural thing in the world, and she'd have been disappointed if I hadn't. The days we would spend giggling and dancing, enjoying our mutual silliness, and living in the moment so alien on this home world of thinkers. The nights we would spend looking up at the night sky, and planning out our future as we mapped out which stars we would travel to. Our marriage, attended by few, but gatecrashed by many curious species who wondered how two people from such different worlds could ever end up together, still somehow had felt very intimate, an occasion for love and laughter and music and weird dancing that attendees still talked about. Our honeymoon on Helisphere, where the Belobrats fed us cake they couldn't eat and gave us alcohol we couldn't drink and showed us party games we didn't understand. And somehow none of it had mattered, because we were together, and together we could do anything. Never once in our half-century together, since I'd first heard a disembodied voice in my head, had I ever questioned that Aglo and I would end up together and live amongst the stars. Never once had I questioned that we would come to this planet and flourish. Not once had I considered a future that hadn't looked like this. Yet now that the future was here, she suddenly seemed so alien. It had been hard to get my head around. Thank goodness I didn't have 3 off in my thought. The problem, of course, was that as a peace envoy, I ought to be able to keep the peace in my own marriage. But the universe, even with all its toings and froings from quadzillions of creatures, was easier to understand than a relationship, I realised. En masse species were species, and were highly predictable, tending to follow the same patterns time after time, with the same resolutions to nearly every problem from nearly every planet. Personal relationships, though, were much harder, and seemed to be utterly random at times, all reacting to unseen outside forces that pulled them this way and that, sometimes to breaking point, as we grew closer yet further apart in different ways, simultaneously. I suddenly felt way out of my depth with Aglo, and helpless to know what to do for the best despite our clear closeness, even when I felt no nerves at all meeting delegates from all 10 species at once. They, though, felt like my friends, even though most of them were strangers who had only ever written to me and been unable to travel to visit the peace building. By contrast, my wife felt like a stranger at times, even when I loved her more and knew her better than anyone else in the universe. Oh well, at least we were still here on this planet, together. Alone was lonely after all, and we had been such an unbreakable team on Mars. I was sure we would be again. Suddenly I was broken from my thoughts by a loud cry, getting my attention. "What's so urgent, Aglo?" I said, being pulled as I was into the corridor.
I've just been having a talk with Bob. He reckons that I have what it takes to be the next Miss Mars in the next Miss Universe pageant on Abridas. I am incredibly beautiful after all. The universe won't know what's hit it. He wants me to sign up right away. Out of the IPO budget, of course. Often don't look so worried. He says he'll pay for it out of the kindness of his own heart. I need to go straight away, though, he says.
I struggled to take the news in.
You don't seem very happy for me.
Aglo carried on, frowning. "I'm just surprised," I said. "And a little sad if that means you're going. Not that I don't think you're not capable, because you'd win that contest standing in your head, which from what I understand of Habridats, a lot of them do. But why now?"
Because I'm beautiful, of course. I deserve to win. That's what Bob said to me.
I think he might have been filling up your head with ideas, I started, but she just put all her hands on her many hips and stared me down.
I am beautiful, aren't I?
Of course, you're gorgeous.
And that's settled. And being pretty is much more important than running the universe. You'll drop everything to come and support me, won't you? Tonight?
I was a bit taken aback. What, now? We don't even have any fast shuttles ready yet. They've not arrived. We'll be weeks in transit. Eglo laughed.
We'd better leave now then. Come on.
She skipped off quickly, stopping only when she came to a specially installed Belobrat mirror.
Lie down, gorgeous.
She whispered to herself.
I'm totally going to win.
She paused.
What do you think I would look like with my grunt antlers?
I think you look like a deer, I confessed.
Thanks, dear.
She replied. No, I said. I mean, you look like a deer. Double E-R. An earth animal. Belobrat heads weren't built for antlers. She scowled at me and went to walk away.
You're not following,
she said. Eglo, I can't, I said. The fate of the universe weighs on my shoulders. If we were a bit further into my presidency, then I would go with you. But I can't. Not right now. It really wouldn't look right staring at aliens in bathing costumes when I'm supposed to be running the universe. I'm very sorry. I know you'll be amazing if you go. She snorted back at me.
I suppose at least one of us will be. I was going to do things your way and have us work on my speech together. But not now. I'm going to do it myself. Belobrat's no best after all.
It was with some trepidation I got back into bed later on that night. But Eglo was back to showing her softer, gentler Mrasianart side. She even hugged me when I got into bed.
About that contest,
she said in a small voice.
I don't think I'll go. What if I didn't win?
I'm not sure what the criteria is, I said, kissing her. But I wouldn't worry about that. You're perfect. When my term in office is over, you can enter every contest you like, and I will be right by your side.
Thank you,
said Eglo gratefully.
I just wanted something that was my own, you know? We're all busy working. I feel like a spare part here, like I'm an extra spare head or something.
I know, I said. I want that for you too. We're bound to have need of your talent sooner or later, though.
Eleron, Decreeta isn't what I thought it would be. I thought it would be all singing and dancing and pouting and waving my arms in the air with lots of people supporting us. Instead, it feels as if everyone is quietly getting on with their own agenda and quietly being set on everyone off. Even the Wallington Smiles weren't quite as in awe of them as I thought they'd be. I mean, I am First Lady.
You'll always be first to me, I murmured sleepily. Those Belobrats just don't understand what a big deal this is. To be honest, I'm not sure I realised what a big deal this was. I didn't think this would be a walk in the park, but this has turned into a scared run in a Belobrat cemetery in the dark, being chased by one of those blasted dinosaurs that Mrasianbrat keeps banging on about.
About that second interview I gave,
said Eglo quietly.
There may be just a few things in it that were debatable. Not untrue exactly. It's just how I felt in the heat of the moment, you understand. It's all very glamorous, though. You'll like it.
Oh, I said. Well, I'm sure it can't be worse than some of those Belobrat speeches their first ladies gave. Most of those were pure propaganda.
I wonder,
said Eglo.
Do you think we could maybe do a broadcast side by side sometime? Just you and me, the combined front. I'd like that, and it would give me something to do. That's if you still think I could be of use to you as First Lady.
That's a great idea, Eglo, I said, beaming. I'll get Lawrence to see to it at once. You will be diplomatic, though, won't you, my love?
Of course,
said the wide-eyed Eglo.
I don't know what you mean.
There was a long pause.
Can I ask you a question, Eleron?
Continued Eglo.
Do you think anyone here likes me? I mean, that Bob seems nice. He really seems to understand me, but not the others. I feel as if they've gone off me since I got here.
Of course, I said. I mean, I could see why ordering the greatest political minds of her generation to litter pick outside your window might have gone down badly. Holding up a press conference for an hour while you changed your shoots was a bit of a sticking point too. All that time you plagiarised a speech from a 6-year-old Belobrat during that charity event, which ended up with you telling really bad knock-knock jokes. By and large, though, they like you. You've got the best social media following of all of us, after all. And to be honest, if you understand Bob, well, that's a lot more than I do right now.
Oh, thank you for reminding me,
Continued Eglo, taking an extra selfie or five as she pouted at the camera and waved her arms around madly.
Oh, that's another gem for my Three Faces book page.
I'm amazed you spend so much time on something so human, I laugh. When unlike me, you're not even human. Social media was a complete no-no on Mars, a planet where people cared about who you were rather than what you said or what you looked like, and definitely more than what you just eaten. Just go easy on me, others, Eglo. I know your worth and how important you were to my political campaign, but the others don't have family here, or at all from what I remember. They don't realise how close we are, or understand it. Things are difficult for them. It's better together, and worse alone after all.
I just worry I'm not good enough for this job, or for you,
whispered Eglo. I worry whether I'm good enough for this job or for you too, I confess. I have an awful feeling I'm going to end up disappointing everyone. But as for being good enough for me, never doubt it. You're the best, I whispered back, and I reached out my tail from the sofa to comfort her. Now get some sleep. We have our first virtual joint interview in the morning. A thought occurred to me. You will be diplomatic tomorrow, won't you, my love? Eglo flashed me 3 sweet smiles.
Of course. Do I know any other way?
BC, Belobrat Broadcasting Company. The universe's biggest broadcasting company, special interviewer Coulter Wonkite, the Club.Hearted News Central. Now available on their Freeview channel, 97977856976746365867566348589.
Intergalactic President Eleron and his charming First Lady Aglo, appearing by a hologram. Now, firstly, Eleron, as I turn to you, how are you and your good lady wife finding life on Decreeta?
Well, I said, it's early days yet, and there is a great deal of getting used to our surroundings, as I'm sure you'd expect on a new planet that's only just been terraformed. We're still getting to know one another. However, I really do feel that, in time...
It's awful,
moaned Eglo, staring straight ahead at the cameras.
Everyone here is a total nutcase. No one listens to me or takes on my decisions, even though I'm utterly fabulous and everything I do and say is perfect. And you can quote me on that.
Okay. Now, Eleron, the International Peace Organisation has traditionally been seen as a corrupt machine there purely to provide the Belobrats with colour for their dodgy dealings. In what ways have you ensured that things will be different now?
Well, Coulter, no one has been more concerned about the charges of corruption than me, I said. I love the fact that we now have had a democratic vote across the whole universe based on 10 very different views of running the universe, so that there can be no doubt what the people out there really want.
Yes,
Butted in Eglo.
Plus I'm gorgeous, so I'm sure I helped pick up an extra few billion votes.
We're a real team now, working together to do our best for the good of everyone. And that's so different to the way the IPO used to be run. Let us not forget, though, all the good things that the Belobrats did do for us. Their leadership skills were a real boon in the early days when our species first made contact with each other. I really am glad, though, that we have had a new chance to work together in the present and hopefully in the future.
But Johnson, fuck the way things are going,
muttered Eglo.
Plus everyone knows Belobrats are best in everything.
Are you confident then, Eleron, that there is no more corruption at the IPO, despite the fact that one Belobrat uncivil servant is still known to work there?
Of course, there's always the chance that something is going on I don't know about, I joked. But if there is, nobody's told me.
Bob's dishy,
said Eglo distractedly.
He's the perfect politician. Big, strong, proud, handsome, opinionated. He's so assertive and aggressive and brilliant. Just what you need in a crisis. Well, Eleron's kind of okay too,
she added quickly.
Quite so. Eleron, what's been the biggest challenge to your presidency so far?
Well, Coulter, there have been a few. Learning to put our differences and work together has resulted in some teething troubles.
Oh, there's punch-ups,
added Egglow. While living on a newly terraformed planet, the Belobrat's only half-finished building has its problems too.
I'll say,
Nagged Egglow.
I mean, there's a blooming hole in our bedroom wall where the ice gets in. The food replicators are all wonky. There's no privacy from anyone anywhere. And as you well know, Coulter, politicians are some of the ugliest people you ever met in any species. They're not the best to stare at all day. Not like first ladies and first gentlemen. We put the oo into news and the it into politics.
We've heard a lot about your general ideas in politics, Eleron, and they seem admirable, yet a bit optimistic. What actual policies are you putting in place to back up your speeches about global equality?
Well, Coulter, I will of course be updating my policies as I get to meet with species from around the universe and hear about their individual worries and concerns. However, one thing I know that would help a lot of us out there is to concentrate on the biggest sources of unequal income across the universe. For instance, the sweatshops on Earth that mass produce the goods used by other planets via slave labour must be stopped, and I plan to meet with Earth President Doris Johnson to talk about exactly that, regardless of whether the Earth pull out of the IPO treaty or not. Also, I think a greater wealth tax on the biggest businesses across our half of the universe can go into a pot to help those who are really suffering and in need. It would be a fair and noble use of our money. We have to stop all this off-orbit nonsense where companies don't pay their fair share of funds.
Except for the Belobrats, of course,
interjected Egglow, who had been biting all three lips trying to keep silent.
We deserve only the finest things in life, and if anyone doesn't have wealth, then that's fair lookout. Losers, everyone in the universe has the same equal opportunities.
No, they don't, I counter-argued, despite having promised that we would show a unified front. There's far too much difference between the rich and poor planets, and the beings that live on each planet come to that. That equality is precisely the argument what I was elected into office on.
Well,
sniffed Egglow.
I know that's what you said. I didn't know you actually believed it. We're all for fairy stories, aren't we, husband?
Of course I believe it, I started, surprised. Why do people find it so hard to believe that I care for the people who have been stuffed so badly by the universe and want to help them? I'm in a position to make a life better for quadzillions of people. Why wouldn't I take that opportunity?
Maybe we should have worked harder,
complained Egglow.
There's no room for shirkers on any planet. It's not fair that I should get up early to work hard every morning when all those lazy good-for-nothings stay in bed.
What? I said. Their planetary orbit is different to ours. That's not their fault. The only reason you get up early every morning is to count your money and move your investments around and powder your noses. Egglow shrugs.
It's my job to look glamorous for you. That's what first ladies and first gentlemen are for. You could do a lot better in the look department yourself, Eleron. You're a mess. I'm gorgeous. You're showing me up.
Thankfully, Coulter interrupted before we came to blows.
Egglow, how are you finding the new life on Decreeta? Has it been as you expected?
Hardly,
said Egglow scornfully.
This democracy is a sham. Never have I met such an uncouth bunch of incompetent aliens. Every one of them is a disappointment. Well, except Bob. He's the only one worth listening to, apart from me. I sometimes even think my own husband is.
I coughed as diplomatically as I could. Egglow has always been a welcome support in my political decisions. We're a team, really. Being alone is lonely, after all. Egglow snorted and turned to me.
Not much of a team. I'm the brains and the beauty. I'm not quite sure what Eleron does all day. He signs some papers, it's true, and filled up a few fountains. But what else exactly has he done? I should have been voted on my own. I'm utterly brilliant. I'm the best.
Please don't shout at us now. That's to hide under. Virtual security. Virtual security. Interplanetary alert.
Get your fairy paws off me. You're not worthy of touching me,
screamed Egglow, pushing away the holograms of the Glabdahardit security guards, who ran away squeaking in fear.
Any closing words, Eleron?
asked Coulter, trying his best to keep calm amongst the mayhem. Yes, I said, trying to match his composure. Give peace a chance.
Get off me, you stupid, hopeless, holographic, piker-type creatures. You're all the same dumb, stupid animals, not like the Belobrats. I'm a first lady, I am. The most ladiest first lady there ever was. I can still squash you all where you stand,
yelled Egglow behind me, trying to shake off the virtual guards.
Give peace a chance,
deadpanned Coulter.
A worthy sentiment there from our peace president. Time will only tell whether enough people around the universe agree with that idea, including his good lady wife. Diplomacy at its finest, fair.
I pretended this wasn't happening. Thank you for having me, Coulter. I always love it when I get to speak with my beloved Glabdahartians, who have always been close to my heart since my experiences with Almathea on Mars. I truly love and respect your culture and way of life.
You big stupid fairy blobs,
Continued Airglow in the background.
I should shove you out into the nearest coal planet and shave you bald.
Thanks for that, Shay. A currency exchange. The Glabdahartan dollar fell 1 quad against the Flanders Grand Ruble, who was up 87.4 quailons on the Habridat Kadid.
I'm sorry, Eleron,
Said Airglow quietly to me an hour or so later, looking greatly contrite. She delivered a similarly sincere public apology to Glabdahardis too.
I didn't really mean any of it. I'm just not used to intergalactic attention, and I rather enjoyed it. It was the glare of the cameras. It brought out my Belobrat side. Things weren't so bad when we were on Mars, but there I just felt all those millions of Glabdahardists staring up at me with their big googly eyes, and I just wanted to bully them all.
I'll say, I said. I thought you were about to wallop me too at one point.
Well,
Explained Airglow.
you were spouting such nonsense about equality and peace and drivel and stuff. It's never going to happen. I thought I'd better distract from you.
But that was my dream, I said. The main reason I'm here. I thought you believed in it too. Airglow sniffed.
I'm kind of used to. Back on Mars it seemed more possible. But here, with all those dumb aliens we have to work with, it just seems obvious to me that some species are superior to others and the rest don't deserve sailing. That's all.
Meaning the Belobrats, I suppose. Airglow shrugged.
You have to admit, Bob's done the best job of any of us. The way he's kept this planet moving against all the odds, handled the extra terraforming and election, he's worked so hard for the benefit of all of us. I wish you could be more like him, assertive and bold, up for any argument, yet charming and personable with it. Instead, you're just Eleron.
I had been giving this some thought. There's something about Bob I don't like, Airglow. He's ruthless, even for a politician. It wouldn't surprise me at all if that charm is covering up something else. After all, what do we really know about the level of corruption on this planet? Or his part in things? It could be just like the old regime, but under a different name and on a new planet. I must look at the Decretian finances sometime.
You worry too much.
Airglow scowled.
Now enough thinking about the universe, start thinking more about me. Me.
I wonder, I said, more to myself than Airglow. It feels as if the IPO is fragmenting already. How do I unite everyone in my vision for how great the universe could be? Airglow shrugged.
We're all just here to get paid, aren't we? I mean, that's why politicians become politicians, isn't it? For the money? Why don't you get a second job like that nice Bob, who works for 72 accountancy firms, 58 law firms, and 811 businesses? It never seems to get in the way of him doing his job here.
Airglow's voice trailed away.
No,
She said finally.
I don't mean that, Eleanor. Not really. I'm glad you're you. I love what you stand for, even if I do secretly think it's a bit impractical.
I raised an eyebrow, or at least the scruffy half one I have from my human side. A bit impractical. She laughed.
Okay, I think it's a lot impractical if I'm honest. I'm glad somebody is out there taking a stand. In my quieter Mrasianart moments, I really truly believe that you're right. It's just my Belobrat side sees your softly fairness approach and it seems ridiculous. To have peace, you have to grab it, be aggressive, assertive.
But that's just it, I said sadly. You don't have to wage war in order to get peace. Not all the time, anyway. That's what the Belobrats have been doing these past 200 years, at least, and that's just a disguised expression for war, whatever the Belobrats say. If one species is getting an unfair advantage, whoever that might be, but not really interested in peace for all, the way the universe understands it, they're just interested in hanging on to what they have and making sure nobody takes it away from them. How can they be interested in fairness and equality when they're looking down on the people they're stealing from?
Give Bob another chance,
Said Airglow.
Maybe you and him can work together and give us the best of both worlds. After all, there might be a new crisis one day. One of our planets might go to war against another or something. No offence, Eleron, but I would back Bob's charisma and assertiveness over yours any day in the event of such a thing.
That stung, but I had to admit that Airglow might have had a point. I suppose, in a way, I would too. But for now he isn't leader, and I am, so we'll do things my way. And no more arguing with me on live TV, okay? Eglo smiled.
It will never happen again. I can't think what came over me. I'm sorry. Now I shall go and give another solo interview, say what I really think about you, and make everything right again.
However, subconsciously perhaps, I noticed her hand furthest away from me was crossing its fingers. I went back to my office. An hour of not much work later, just answering more letters, a Belobrat worried about his planet's public standing in the universe, a Dewsbury giant who'd started up a soup kitchen only to find another 10 Dewsburys were doing the same down the same street, and a Glabda Harley who seemed to be terrified of everything. I was interrupted again.
It's your wife,
said Bob, looking smug.
I think you've really upset her, Eleron.
Oh, I don't think so, I said. The silence suddenly broken by a staccato gunfire of what sounded like airglow screaming through an earth megaphone and hurling tin trays against a wall. We had a long talk, and she said nothing similar to that Glabda Harley's interview would ever happen again, and I for one believe her. Everything's fine, I lied. Bob's grin grew even wider on his primary head, where his other two looked mischievous.
That's not what I heard, so I wanted to see if I could come round and smooth things over. We can't have her upset, a pretty little thing like her. After all, I don't think you really understand Belobrat psychology. You're clearly an amateur too, from what I've heard. How long have you known each other? 58 years? It's nowhere near enough given the Belobrat's lifespan. We changed so much in our centuries. It's looking bad on the rest of us, so fix it now.
Just then Horace came in, looking pensive.
It's your wife, sir. She's walking around, barking orders about decor and food, and, well, we don't quite know how to handle her, sir. Maybe if you took her away for a holiday, it would calm her nerves.
What is this? I said. Good habitat, bad Belobrat. Look, I don't know how to handle her most of the time either, but she's a person, not a species, and one going through a lot of adjustment in her life right now. I do happen to have known her for longer than all of you. By 58 years, minus a week to be exact. Anyway, even if Airglow has been going out of her way to make this public, it's really not one of your problems, but one of mine. Just send for me if she gets too much. I'll talk her out of it. It's just an extroverted Belobrat side playing up. Horace met my gaze sadly.
You can't go on like this, sir. We can't go on like this, sir.
I gulped involuntarily. I know that. It's just her way of getting things out of the system. She'll go back to her sweeter self for good soon. I know she will. It's just a question of time.
And how long have you been telling yourself that, if you don't mind me asking, sir?
I tried to grin, but it dissolved on my face. I'd never been asked that question before. On Mars, people tended to be private and keep out of each other's business when it came to things like this. 52.5 years, I whispered. There was a pause while both of us tried to work out what to say. She's never going to go back to the Mrasianbrat I first met, is she? I said. I finally gave in to the tears that had been building for years as my second-in-command hugged me, and Bob's smug grin got wider, the thought going through my mind how Intergalactic Peace Treaties are much easier to understand and solve than matters of the heart. Unwilling to work anymore, I took a walk round the IPO headquarters, ending up at the canteen. I come here to get away from my problems, but they seem to be following me, because there, on the wall behind the replicators, was the artwork Airglow had promised to make for me, the ginormous framed portrait of my wife. In it she was wearing a different crown on each of her 3 heads, had a pack of manicured argibraphs at her feet, and the words Primo Domina Governess Pulchra Miriam Optimus framed underneath her in a flowery font. She was waving her arms in the air and pouting.
Do you like it?
Said Airglow behind me.
I've been having it made in secret. I think it makes me look rather regal, don't you?
I said, struggling how to tell my wife the truth, that I thought it made her look a bit dotty. What does the inscription underneath mean? And what language is it in? I don't think I recognise that one.
Oh, it's an outdated old Earth language named Lotin or something,
said Airglow dismissively.
It means First Lady Governess, beautiful, amazing, best. That seems to me up quite well, don't you think?
Lovely. I'm surprised you drew yourself without eyebrows, though. Airglow smiled.
It's an Earth thing, a sign of beauty, apparently. I copied every style I could find before I found one I liked. I call this one the Airglow Lisa. Good, isn't it?
One thing, I asked hesitantly, where is everybody else? I did ask for a team picture. You know, of everyone,
Oh, that.
said Eglo even more dismissively.
There wasn't enough space on the wall, so I've squashed everyone else into a corner. Look, here's a magnifying glass.
I gaped in horror at some crudely drawn caricatures of my IPA colleagues I barely recognised. The only one to have been drawn with any sense of nobility was Bob, whose free head stared out regally across the frame. Everyone else seemed to have been drawn with all the accuracy of a Dewsbury giant toddler on an earth trampoline. Which one am I? Was my next question. Eglo nonchalantly waved a wing at the far right-hand corner, where I saw myself, a tiny dot dwarfed by Eglo's signature. My hat was on crooked, my tongue was sticking out, and my legs were all askew. Is that really how you see me? I asked, surprised. Eglo shrugged.
Sometimes. You don't exactly feel the rut, do you, Eleron, if you know what I mean? What do you think, then? Good, eh?
I'll have to live with it a bit longer before I fully commit myself to it, I lied. Eglo seemed pleased with his falsehood.
Excellent.
She said,
I was thinking about, your idea for helping all those in poverty become richer. So I thought the obvious thing to do would be to reproduce this image on millions of posters, and then I could sign them and sell them off for lots of money. There we go. Poverty solved. Clever old me. Wonder you hadn't thought of it already.
well, I said, more than a little taken aback. That's one way of solving it, I suppose.
Great.
Smiled Eglo. She ran off muttering to herself.
Beautiful. Gorgeous. Stunning.
I was helping myself to a food replicator meal when Horace came in, giving a comical double take when he saw Eglo's portrait.
Who's that?
He asked.
And why hasn't she got any eyebrows?
Ask our beloved First Lady, I muttered to myself darkly under my breath.
Rough to hear.
Horace asked as I finally coaxed the machine into working and helped myself to a huge narwhal burger. I'll say, I started, but before I could continue, Horace handed me a magazine.
It's about to get rougher,
He said.
Eglo has given a second speech. Come and find me when you're finished reading it.
Puzzled, I picked it up and bawled. So this was what Eglo meant by talking to someone glamorous. This wasn't a serious newspaper at all, but a gossip magazine from Earth, who was famous for being the most reviled across all 10 planets.
Cosmopolitan, Volume 5, 67666, Issue 781455, August 2307. The Intergalactic Magazine for Earthlings that's out of this world.
Eglo, the new First Lady of Peace, reveals all about what really goes on in the Intergalactic Peace Organisation.
Inside Scoop, a 28-page exclusive feature on the new Intergalactic Peace Headquarters. How many Belobrats does it take to change a light bulb? How many roads must a Clandesprod walk down before they can call him a clan? We catch up with the disgraced former Earth royal family members, David Cameron and Ian Duncan Smith, wanted for intergalactic crimes. Read our exciting new cookery page from Doozius. Read your stars and see what the galaxy has in store for you, whichever planet you're on.
Cosmopolitan, Saturday, August 30th, 2307. First Lady's Secrets.
Here's the truth,
Said Eglo, posing for the photographers.
The IPO was complete chaos when we arrived. Anything from any planet could have taken over. Even the humans. Or maybe any invaders are better off waiting for a while. You see, between you and me, there's so much tension in the IPO at the moment, a war could break out at any moment. All the delegates from all these worlds have turned out to be a bitter disappointment. I don't think they're really interested in peace at all. They're just going to carry on the corrupt regime of the Belobrats, if you ask me. Boy, was that corrupt. Let me tell you all about it.
With a sense of imploding doom, I opened up the magazine, and it was even worse than I'd imagined. Worse even than when we had a particularly chatty Clandesprod running the Secret Service, or the last time Eglo gave an interview, which had at least been only bad for me. So many of our secrets had been exposed. Eglo hadn't had a chance to show off a glamorous side, which I suspected was why she'd agreed to hold the interview in the first place. The journalist had clearly stitched her up and gone for the incompetent angle instead, and hadn't had to look very far for ammunition. Poor Eglo. I knew she'd hate having lost control again. At least the Clandesprod would have been fair to her in print. The journalist Mariallo, whose name I recognised from my earlier interrogation on Mars, had really done her homework, and pushed Eglo on every weak spot she could find. There were lots of references to how dilapidated the headquarters was, how our finances were in a precarious state due to the underhand dealings of the Belobrat, and how she felt all the IPO delegates were shifty and untrustworthy, including me. I had to spend the next day, when I should have been creating peace in the universe, smoothing over lots of ruffled feathers because of what she'd said, and that was just for Habitat. Thankfully, she'd been much kinder about me than last time. There was in fact a rather lovely feature on our multicultural weddings to each other, and a reference to how she had always been impressed with my ambition. But even there, knowing her as I did, I could tell that her tone wasn't quite as kind and supportive as the reporter had made it out to be at the time of the interview. I'd recognised it from before when I'd spoken to members of the press. Our image was always that of the unbreakable couple who were destined to be together and had never had a cross word to say about each other. So that's what the reporter had heard, even though Eglo hadn't actually said much about us as a couple at all. Just a few lines about how she was surprised I won. But even they heard. I'd only stood in the first place because Eglo had told me to, back in the days when it seemed that I would be president on the glamorous world of Helisphere, rather than this barely terraformed primitive planet we found ourselves on. A lot of it too I recognised as things Eglo had said in all innocence, letting off steam without expecting her words to be printed in her naivety, and for everyone to turn a blind eye to them the way they had on Mraz. That at least is what I went round telling all my colleagues over the next few hours, as I went round apologising on her behalf. But she was on a new planet with new customs, and had been so friendly with all the reporters on Mraz that she'd forgotten she was speaking out loud. In private, though, I knew she needn't have said any of these things at all, particularly not to a stranger. The IPO had been good about it, mostly. Old Dophus had indeed been rather cross-patchy about it, but then old Dophus had always seemed to be cross-patchy about everything. Cody had given me a long lecture about how Eglo had no legal business looking at these papers at all. Horace had merely shrugged his shoulders about it all and asked me to keep a closer eye on my wife. The others didn't seem to particularly care. It was Bob's reaction that surprised me the most. We hadn't exactly been the best of friends so far, and I feared that Eglo's comments about the past Belobrat regime might send him over the edge. But quite the opposite. He said that he had never laughed so much at work in all his life, that one of his heads, he wouldn't say which one, secretly agreed with everything she said. He even offered to have a private word with her himself. I never did hear if he had or not, but I did see Eglo spending far more time with Bob after that. I'd asked Eglo herself to meet with everyone and explain things from her point of view, but when I asked her, she just feigned innocence and rolled her eyes, and asked me if I'd do it, as I was better at that sort of thing than her. The Agrosian shuttle was off and away, making good progress, and Queen Calixta was very pleased. Not that you'd know it from her face, which came in the form of a permanent scowl. Soon she would be the first Agrosian to be conqueror of a new part of the universe that her ancestors had never even known was there, and she would be worshipped as the greatest warrior of all time, greater even than her illustrious predecessors. People would chant her name for centuries. They would learn about her in compulsory education. They would make statues of her and sing songs about her, and she was interrupted from her thoughts.
What's the plan, oh majesty, Empress?
Asked Posh, grandly bowing.
None of us were alive during the time of the last conquering. We've always wondered how you do it. Yes,
cried out Posh.
will we get to use our spears? Or will we just use our hands?
Asked Kosh.
You must be joking. Our queen is the best weaponry in the universe. I will beat these filthy aliens hands down,
Said Josh.
I bet it will be amazing to witness you in battle.
Said Kosh.
Enough!
Said Queen Calixta, cutting off their chatter.
I wasn't alive at the time of the last great conquering either, but only because my ancestors conquered everything so many years ago. I have read extensively about their magnificent exploits, however, and several things become clear. One is that we want to hold as many captives as possible, so that the best of them can be trained to join you in the hive. Two is to make sure there is no debate in the history books after we are all dead and gone. We win by fair and noble means. We must first give these aliens a chance to allow the leader of these alien worlds to formally hand over all beings and resources for us as we see fit. Three is that if these aliens don't agree and refuse to obey, then this weapon of mine will destroy first the habitations, and then, if they still don't submit, the aliens themselves. Ha 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 ha! Maniacal laugh. And these spears
Asked Posh.
will make you look threatening,
Said Calixta.
but aren't actually that practical. Now keep applying your war paint while your queen readies herself for battle.
There was a knock at my office door. At first I thought there was nobody there, but then I realised that it was Jane, the Glabdahardit, who had formerly been my general, who was now working in diplomacy. She squeaked.
Can I come in?
Certainly, I said, reaching down to retrieve the spotless chair. She squeaked.
I'd rather we sat under the table, but it's all the same with you. I feel more comfortable there. My office has turned into something of a political hotspot. There's a gooseberry jar cooking something in a giant barbecue next door to me. I'm scared we'll put me in a hot dog bun. Or worse, put icing on it. So I've come to plead diplomatic immunity and hide under your desk.
I wanted to make my staff feel self-conscious. I moved a few boxes and squatted under there too. Hey, this is quite something under here. I don't think I've ever sat under this table before in my time on Decreeta. I always like it when my staff show me a new way of looking at things. Oh, look over there. I think I've just located the official IPO seal I lost the other day. Squeaked Jane. She was quite relieved when it turned out to be a rubber stamp rather than an amphibious animal. I put the seal safely out of harm's way on top of my desk.
Thank you, Eleron.
Squeaked Jane.
I feel much more stable under the table. I really like my new job. It's far less scary. Even when the other diplomats around the universe are saying something threatening, they all say it so nicely. I don't feel scared at all.
Good, I smiled. You know, that might be the first encouraging news I've had all day. I sighed. Jane looked at me.
You seem tense, sir.
She said.
You scared of something?
Everything, I sighed. It all seems to be going wrong. I don't know where to start. Between you and me, it feels as if the universe is falling apart, and my marriage with it. I thought if I became elected as a somebody, I would feel powerful. But instead, it just feels as if everything is out of control and can't be stopped. I fear I'm the wrong person for this job. I wish someone would change my role for me. Jane looked up at me with her big eyes.
You were good with people, Eleron. You knew just where to put us to get the most out of our abilities.
I sighed deeper. Well then, maybe I should rehire myself as the blasted cleaner then, because those two humans still aren't here yet. I don't feel presidential at all.
You can't change your job, then maybe you should change your mindset.
Squeaked Jane.
That's the next best thing. Oh, I need some vegetables. That always helps. Would you like a carrot?
I gladly take one and munch it thoughtfully.
Sir, I just wanted you to know.
Added Jane.
You're not as alone as you think you are. There's a whole huddle of creatures here wanting to help you, sir. If only you'll let us hide under the table with you from time to time.
I pat my ex-general on the head. Thank you. That's just what I needed to hear right now. Between you and me, I think the Belobrat and Habitat are hiding things from me. But I can't prove it yet. And confronting them about it is, well, scary. I keep thinking there must be a smoking gun out there that proves it. But I can't work on supposition and suspicion on politics. Only facts.
Smoking gun?
Said Jane in alarm as she looked around her. She squeaked, reaching up to the table and grabbing my microphone. No, I said, interrupting. No interplanetary alert, everyone. False alarm.
Misunderstanding. This alarm is false.
Squeaked Jane.
This alarm isn't working. I repeat, the alarm is not true.
No, I said, wrenching the microphone out of my colleague's paws. The alarm is working fine. It's just a figure of speech. I put the microphone back on the table. What I meant was, I wish I could prove Horace and Bob are up to something, that they cover up their tracks too well. You wouldn't keep an eye out for me, would you? I know Glabdahardits are particularly good at sniffing out little changes and things that don't seem quite right. I'd love to think we're all working for the same objective, but I have this crushing feeling most people are here for their own ends.
Certainly, sir. And I understand.
Squeaked Jane.
It's as if peace has brought out all the differences between us, rather than a big community huddle. I saw it many times on Glabdahardit. Without a combined threat to run away and hide under the table from, we splinter and disintegrate and eat at each other instead of eating at the threat.
That's a thought, I said. But what can I do? I can't invent a new enemy for us to run away from. I sighed. This is really hard. I just thought maintaining peace would be more peaceful.
One tip for you, sir,
said Jane.
When I'm afraid of things I can't change, I work on the things I can. Half of our interplanetary alerts turn out to be things that can be solved, and nothing to be scared of, really. although sometimes there are really scary things, like somebody sneezing, or breathing loudly, or visitors who come in and drop crumbs.
How about your families? I asked her. Do they scare you too?
Sometimes.
Squeaked Jane.
Well, I worry for their safety, and I feel I can't protect them. But then they're usually hiding under the table with me when something bad happens.
That's just it, I smiled. Eglo and I used to hide under the same tables, but now it feels as if I'm huddling alone under one very big responsible table, full of all the universe's troubles and all the many things that can go wrong. Or she hides under a different one, worried about how many likes she's getting on Instaface, and what parties she's seen at, and who she's seen with. It's as if the introvert part of her I used to connect with just isn't there anymore, and she's become a full extrovert, but I can't relate to her at all. I just wish I could find someone to help Eglo feel the way she used to. I'd sacrifice anything to see her happy again, even if that means my job, my happiness, even my marriage if that's what it takes for her to be the carefree Mrasianbrat I married. Even her pouts don't seem the way they used to anymore. She's also as tanned as if she'd come from the triple sunshine of Ziggurat Free, or if you dipped her in a vat of human gravy. They used to be just for the camera, but now it's like her eyes have joined in with her mouth. And as for what she's done with her eyebrows, could it really be in fashion? I mean, she's part Belobrat, part Mrasianart. We can't get tans. She shouldn't even have any eyebrows. It's genetically impossible.
I don't know much about hybrids, sir, but maybe you can find someone else to help,
Suggested Jane.
You need someone to hide under the table with you in your eyes, need.
Thank you, I said, smiling back at my diplomatic chief. But as she's the only Mrasianbrat in the universe, who could I possibly go to? I used to feel that I was the only person who could understand her, but she was the only person who could understand me. But what do I do now? I feel I need to confront her and put down some boundaries, but confrontation's never been my strong point. That's why I work in peace. I'm quickly learning that as hard as it is to make peace with people who are at war with you, it's still harder to make war with the ones you don't.
The answer's simple,
Squeaked Jane.
If your tables are too far apart, you find someone to push your two tables together. Oh, and Eleron, it's important not to be scared. Although I would appreciate it if I could stay on to hear a few more minutes. I think I hear a douche be giant firing up his giant candy floss maker. I don't want to end up covered in big sticky glue. You can't be taken seriously as a proper political figure with big silly hair. At least not with these tiny hands.
You're right, I say, smiling down at Jane. About not being scared, I mean. I shall go and see her now.
Good luck,
said Jane, smiling.
Just remember not to roll up into the bowl at the wrong moment. Oh, you probably better fill up on some extra vegetables.
I took another handful of carrots and grazed. Eglo, I began as I walked into our room, where Eglo was reading what appeared to be the human sci-fi series, The Foundation Trilogy by Earthling, Isaac Asimov. Oh, I'm impressed, I said, pointing. That's very highbrow. Eglo frowned and turned the book over.
Highbrow, you mean? Not highbrow. This is the Belobrat adaptation.
But it's the Foundation Trilogy, I said. I know it well.
That's right,
She said.
Foundation in lipstick, foundation in mascara, foundation in eyeliner. It's all about how to look good in a mirror. When you're going to realise looks get you further in life than books.
She put the tone down.
Anyway, what was it you wanted? I'm busy.
We really need to talk, I added, more assertively than I felt. I saw Eglo's bottom lips wobble, though the top halves continued to scowl directly at me, along with her eyes. I often saw her Belobrat and Mrasian sides at war with each other across her features, but never more than now. I threw the magazine at her.
Oh,
She said, pouting and waving her arms in the air.
I was going to show you myself later as a surprise. Didn't the wedding picture look good?
It was lovely. The interview, however, wasn't,
Oh,
she said.
was I not complimentary enough?
I quoted a few choice lines for her about her shock at my winning and how she thought I would end up being worse than the Belobrat.
Oh well,
Said Eglo simply.
it was a surprise you won, wasn't it?
Maybe, I added, but I'm not that bad. You need to give me a chance. My wife scoffed.
A chance? Aren't I the one who came with you? I don't know if you've noticed, but these surroundings aren't exactly glamorous. Endless fog and rainstorms, faulty food replicators, a building that makes me feel like waving my arms around would knock it over.
Nothing about politics is glamorous. Not when you do it right, anyway. You know that from Rans.
I just thought it would be different here.
She sighed.
Being in charge of a whole planet, in one big building, with lots of stories.
I know this isn't what either of us expected, I said. But it's not my fault. You can't take it out on me. We discussed that it was always going to take a long time to see any change. And you're not allowed to give state secrets away. I thought we'd agreed.
Oh,
She tutted.
it's not like it isn't what everyone is thinking. It's just that no one else is brave enough to come out and say it, that's all. I know we're not meant to run the universe with Belobrats anymore, but we need a darn sight more of them if you ask me.
Eglo looked me up and down.
I can't help it if I'm special and you're ordinary. I'm not sure I believe in you anymore, Eleron. If I believe in us.
My eyes full of tears, and cursing my human DNA that allowed me to cry, something that as a Mrasianbrat Eglo always saw as a weakness. I stumbled back downstairs to work, the document swirling round my head, accompanied by the things Eglo had just said to me. A park on the Grumpus requested a new Endurance Insurgents hybrid statue, and their committee team had sent computer-generated holograms of how it would look. Only the faces of Lizzie, Enwyn, Oberon and Eleanor took on the look of Eglo, telling me over and over again that I was ordinary, impractical, that she voted for Bob, not me. I held up documents signed by my Belobrat predecessors with their full-image holograms attached. But all three heads of each Belobrat turned into Eglo, telling me how much she hated me, that I was useless, a nobody. I signed papers agreeing to meetings and budgets and conferences, and everywhere, following my name, I saw the things Eglo had called me. Useless Eleron, loser Eleron, hopeless Eleron. Though I was getting no useful work done whatsoever, I stayed in my office as long as I could, till Urur had gone round turning all the lights out, not noticing I was there, and willing to go upstairs and face what came next. Well, tomorrow was the date of my first ever intergalactic conference, and although it was virtual, and I wouldn't be travelling to it, I planned to shut myself in my office all day and keep everyone else out, even if the blasted thing ended early. Horace came into my office, surprisingly late for him, looking unusually concerned, at least by Tabridat standards.
Eleron,
He said,
my favourite intergalactic president. You know that media coverage you wanted? Well, the first one's in and we had no hand in. I have to say, it's got a very agreeable account of you. You know, given what magazine it's actually in.
"All right," I said. "Is it good publicity? I guess it can't be worse than the last one you showed me."
Well,
He said,
all publicity is good publicity if you look at it the right way.
He placed the magazine on my desk, complete with 3D hologram pull-out that leapt out at me with a pistol shot. War magazine. What is it good for? Keeping you up to date with all the latest weaponry and biotech across the universe. Because when the next war happens, it won't be a world one, but a universal one. War Monthly, number 5, Mugger, making the universe great again. The magazine where happiness is a warm gun and everything is in bullet points. In this exciting action-packed special, the secret intentions of a so-called International Peace Organisation, who would win in an actual intergalactic fight between the Glabdahardits and the Dewsbury Giants. The Earth goes nuclear, with a new power station. They actually sell this thing? I asked Horace, who just shifted from foot to foot uncomfortably. I mean, that part about who would win between the Glabdahardit and the Dewsbury Giants is just media hysteria. One of them's scared of their own shadow, and one of them are the most peaceful, gentle creatures you could ever meet.
I believe they have quite a high readership across 7 planets. Earth is the biggest readership, naturally.
Horace said. I looked inside, horrified. Intergalactic Monster, the latest shock developments of the IPO. President Eleron promised his electorate that his time in office would feature such sickening developments as peace, and more peace. All those do-gooders out there across the universe turned out in droves to vote for a candidate who, by his own admission, played a major role in ending the brilliant and prosperous term of King Almathea on Mars. Now he says he has plans for us all to work together in peace and harmony. Please, pass me the sick bag. We have it on great authority from an insider working at the IPO who asked us if we could keep all 3 of his heads anonymous. In a clandestine meeting with our editor, he commented,
"I worry about what would happen in the event of an international crisis, as our president couldn't negotiate his way out of the paper bag. Eleron has been in power for almost a week now, and he still hasn't negotiated one proper peace treaty, or solved any disputed conflicts. Instead, he's directed our military budget into a fund for himself, dismissed all the Belobrat army, and done the Decreeta terraforming dirt cheap out of greed. He's just another hippie do-gooder with his head in the clouds. Unlike the previous brilliant and inspired administrative team, who may have done a few things that were bordering on dodgy, but always knew where the next war was coming from and how to get involved. Indeed, the international gun-running scheme, which provides illicit weapons to troops, continues unabashed and is far more popular than anything this president will ever do."
We happened to see papers that confirmed this Belobrat story, but despite sleepy President Eleron's claims of having a finger on the pulse of the universe, he barely has a pulse himself, and he spends most of his time in the IPO offices answering glowing fan letters, napping, and needlessly changing staff around despite their qualifications. We ask, how much longer can this traitor continue in power? When will he give us our guns back that were taken away from us 300 years ago in an erroneous peace treaty? Another spokesperson said from under their desk.
Please don't ask me. I'm only doing my job. I'm taking orders.
Whose orders are they? We should be told. More on pages 1 to 397. Is Eleron an anarchist intent on destroying us all? Why is the International Peace Organisation hopelessly unprepared for war? Where do our taxes go? On a cushy terraformed planet with all the home comforts? We have a right to know. Sleepy? I'm not sleepy, I say, as I throw the rotten rag across the room, while Horace ducked instinctively during his nap. What a pack of lies! I've only been in the job a few days. I've not been given a chance to do anything. And me an anarchist? I want to build things up, not tear them down.
To some people, that's the same thing. After all, look what you've been doing here in a week already,
said Horace sleepily, and I glared at him. Anything I take down is corrupt and long past its prime, and something better will go in its place, something better for everyone. Who writes this rubbish? I thought you told me it was good publicity. Good publicity considering, said Horace. They've never been keen on any of the IPO presidents. I could see why, I continued furious. Why do they want to go backwards and go back to having weapons? In this day and age, we're all getting along. And what was that part about gun running? That's not true, is it? Horace shrugged.
Maybe, maybe not. The Belobrats did do a lot of things before I got here. It was out of my control. I found it best to look away.
Well, I won't, I screamed. I'm the head of the International Peace Organisation, for crying out loud, not International Battles Anonymous. Oh, and talking of Anonymous, get Bob in here right now. I have a few words to have with him.
I think he's busy now, sir,
said Horace sullenly.
With pressing affairs of state.
He'll be pressing something in a state if he doesn't get in here right now, probably in an unterraformed prison planet jumpsuit. Bob lounged in a few minutes later, looking cool.
Good write-up,
he said, pointing at the magazine.
I thought we really captured your likeness.
What is the meaning of this? I said. Why are you delivering news stories to rags like this one that aren't true? Bob smiled evilly.
You said yourself you wanted publicity, so I wasn't going to turn down anyone who asked for a soundbite. And who says the facts in there aren't true? Have you actually looked into gun smuggling?
No, I said. Bob folded all of his sets of arms.
Then why not? You're the president after all. I expected more from you, Eleron.
Because I've only been a week in the job and I didn't know there was such a thing as gun smuggling going on. Why would I? We're an International Peace Organisation. The clue's in the flipping name, I half screamed at him.
Temper,
he smiled.
Everyone told me about the earthly dimensional chief. Seems most on the half Mrasianbrat body. I can see why humans are so behind on the evolutionary stakes. Not that the Mrasianbrats are much higher,
he giggled. I don't see what's so funny. You won't be laughing pending my official investigation, I said. And I can have you sacked for breaching our confidential codes alone.
You're getting mad. It's hysterical.
Belobrat grinned.
I'm giving orders. It's almost like you still think you're the boss around here.
I am the boss around here.
Easy with our temper, Eleron,
Bob drawled.
It's not very presidential of you. People will talk. You've no chance of getting rid of me. I know all the state secrets from being here, and I'm awfully popular in my job, if I say so myself. And good luck proving it was me who leaked those comments.
pointed at the magazine. This bit here says the admission came from a being with 3 heads. Now kindly point out anyone else working at the IPO with 3 heads. I'll wait. Bob grinned.
That's hardly proof, though. Magazines like that will get things wrong all the time.
That's a silhouette of your features. Bob pretended to look at the picture carefully.
3 heads. I suppose it does look a little bit like me. You can't see any extra features, though, can you? It would be quite hard to prove in a court of law, I should think. Just ask any Cavalosian.
I turned to my vice president for backup. I want that Belobrat fired, I tell him. To my shock, Horace started laughing.
Fireball? Oh, no chance. Oh, dear me, no. This place would ground to a halt without him. He's been here longer than anybody, Eleron.
Yes, I say, and that's why he has to go. He's as corrupt as the old regime were. Don't think I didn't realise that those weapons were smuggled to Helisphere of all places. There's only you and Earth that still have such things, and the humans wouldn't know what to do with those sorts of guns. They'd probably put them on toast and eat them with beans.
Oh, what a shame, Eleron.
Slurred Bob, acting mock-eyed.
I do believe that last remark was libelous, and I'm a witness to it too. Oh, this could get you off into serious trouble. Still, I'll be kind and merciful to you and overlook it for the good of the IPO. You're new here. I suppose it's only natural to get a bit bossy and full of your own importance sometimes.
Horace, I say, starting on another tack, I want a full investigation into this gun-running business, and if there's so much as a bullet that's linked back to the IPO, then I will fire everyone involved. Dismissed. But Horace and Bob wouldn't go. Instead, the Belobrat leaned over to me, the lips of all 3 heads curling.
This is my organisation, Humrasianart. Never forget that whatever it says on the paperwork. I put up with you here through sufferance, nothing more.
Under his breath he whispered, just loud enough for me to hear.
Even for a hybrid of the 2 most stupid species, man, you're dumb.
Finally he walked out of the door, past Horace.
I shall be up later.
Said the Habradat nervously.
Much later. It's time for my time off.
And he darted out the door after Bob, seemingly afraid of being left alone with me. Hello, honey, I'm home. At last. What an awful day that was, I said as I tentatively put my head round the door to our room, ready to pull it back in at any moment in case something was thrown at it. Instead I found Aglo smiling up at me, all trace of hostilities and break-up gone.
Hello, Presidential honey. Come over here and join me.
Everything okay? I hovered nervously in the doorway. I ought to be getting on with my speech at the Intergalactic Food Poverty Conference tomorrow, really. Not that I've been able to put together any policies for solving it yet, but there's a big speech I have to give. Eglo laughed lightly.
Oh, that doesn't matter. Now come and sit down and concentrate on the important issues. Which of these crowns and tiaras I should wear for our conference on international food poverty tomorrow? Also, very important question. Do you know what the menu will be? Will there be cake?
Like most Belobrats, Eglo was rather partial to cake, though as far as I knew she had only ever tried the Belobrat sort yesterday with our assorted guests, and hadn't liked it much more than me. Pleased at the change in her manner, I go to sit down beside her. That one seems nice, I say. Eglo pulls a face.
That one? No, she says. What I really need is a whole new outfit.
But dear, I say, struggling out to word this, I'm not even sure if you'll be able to go to this conference with me, as it's so very limited who gets to talk. Plus it's only being held through the Universal anyway, not in person. No one will see you from the knees down. Eglo pouts and waves her arms badly.
Oh, do be sensible. It's on the Universal. Oh, have they seen my dress? Go and get the shuttle ready now. I order it.
Well, they won't, I explained as gently as I could. The whole point of the conference is how we can save money. It wouldn't go down well if I used up all that warp-drive fuel for turning up just to say a few words, now would it?
All right then,
said Eglo.
I'll have a new food replicator machine installed upstairs instead, just for me. That's practical.
Yes, I said, worried, but expensive. That would take most of our budget for the next 3 terms. Maybe in the future if we moved a few things around, but Eglo's 3 bottom lips all start quivering.
I don't have anything to do and nobody to do it for. Nobody gets to see how pretty I am or takes my picture and puts it in the paper or even calls me First Lady.
I pat her on all 3 heads, trying to soothe her. I'm sorry, Eglo. I know how brilliant you are, and in time I'm going to make everyone else know how brilliant you are too. I don't think for 1 minute I would have got here without you pushing me, persuading me, and most of all believing in me. I believe in you too. Alas, there are certain things I have to do alone, though, however much I need you by my side. We're still a team, though, right? Alone is lonely, remember? Now I know with everything going on I haven't been able to pay you the attention I usually do. Let's say we have some quiet time together. Just you and me. Eglo begins to smile up at me, but Horace chose the worst possible moment to come in through the door.
You're needed downstairs, sir. There's a newly sentient algebra on the phone asking if he can have a planet of his own because he's fed up of sharing his world with Calixta. He says they snore.
I sigh. Can't it wait? The First Lady and I were just in the middle of something, and I thought you were having time off. Horace shrugged.
Bob told me not to. I always do what he says. Afterwards there are another 1,000 things for you to sign,
continued Horace.
Not to mention all those congratulatory messages that have come in from around the universe you still haven't replied to yet.
I groaned. They can all wait a bit longer, can't they? I need a rest.
You shouldn't have taken the job if you weren't up to it, sir,
said Horace annoyingly placidly.
It's not good to be asking for so much time off already. I could always have a go if you like. Do it for you?
No, I said quickly, I'm coming.
Well, you're the president,
continued Eglo icily.
Do something about it. What's the point of you? Maybe I won't be here when you've run out of work to do, and by then it will all be too late.
I'm sorry, I start, but I'm interrupted.
Oh,
said Eglo, running off.
Sorry, I hate that word. I'll soon give you something to be really sorry about. Why is everything you do so annoying? When I think of who I could have married, I didn't realise that when the job got bigger you would remain so tiny.
Oh no, what did I say this time? Unable to kick myself, I kicked the broken part of the wall instead so that it let even more unwanted weather in. Unable to fix it, I went downstairs to at least pretend to be doing what Horace wanted me to do, and to stare unseeingly at some files again.
Eleron,
said Horace, knocking at my door and looking more frazzled than his usual laid-back self. It was well past his regular nap time too.
Can I have a word?
As long as it's only a word, I don't have time for any more, I said shortly, pointing at all the work I hadn't been doing, because I'd been having a far more productive time staring into space instead. I hadn't forgiven him for not standing up for me against Bob either.
I've just been woken up from my very precious nap by not one, but 2 people you seem to have annoyed today.
I groaned. Let me guess. One of them had 3 heads, and one of them has about 3 flipping personalities. Horace frowned.
If by that you mean your predecessor and your darling wife, then yes. It's not up to me to be putting out your fire as president, sir. You're supposed to be the peace advocate, aren't you? We'll have to start creating peace here.
It's not so simple, I said. They've both been up to so many things they shouldn't have been doing that I don't know where to start. If I am to set an example on how to behave, then that starts at home, right here on Decreeta. One of the things I was hired to do is balance the budget. My Mechion employee and I can't do that. We have a crooked ex-president still hanging around taking money on the side, and a wife spending money like Earth H2O. Horace sighed.
I thought you were supposed to be the master of compromise. You didn't rock the boat and was nice to everybody. That was what you were voted in to do, wasn't it?
Within reason, I said curtly. Part of the president's job is not allowing himself to be run over by those around him. If you want to go by people's roles, then surely everybody should be doing what I'm asking them to, including my employee and my wife. Horace sat on my desk, his thin bird-like frame peering down at me.
I'm not at all how you seem from your speeches, you know, sir. I thought we were in for a nice, peaceful period, after all that work for the Belobrat shouting at me and each other all the time. You know, things would be so much better for you if you just didn't care about them, and let things slide from time to time. I've never worked with a Mrasianbrat before, but what the legends say about you is true. They're all far too intense for me. Things should be easy and flow naturally, or else why do them at all?
I shivered. But to ignore it would mean letting it continue, and it's wrong. You're asking me to look the other way, and I won't do it, not anymore. Horace raised his feathered eyebrows again.
Good gracious, no, sir, he said. That's not what I meant at all. Just do what Bob tells you from time to time. Seems to work for me.
Well, I sighed, it won't work for me. I have a responsibility to change things that are wrong, and point out those wrongs when I see them. That's a rare point both my Mrasianart and human sides have always agreed over, and I'm not about to change that now. Horace looked perturbed.
Maybe you would use less energy and get more done if you concentrated on changing the things you could change and let the things you can't change go.
But who's ever going to change them? Not the Intergalactic President, I said, still fuming. I haven't even got the basics working yet, so how can I achieve all the good, wondrous things I'm meant to achieve?
Maybe you should have thought of that before you ran for election as our peace representative,
asked Horace, so dryly I would have gladly throttled him, peace candidate or not. However, he turned to me, his wings outstretched in peace, and spoke in a gentler voice.
I know you want to achieve a lot, Eleron. I truly think you will by the time you retire. But that doesn't mean you have to achieve everything now, all in one go. The IPM was formed over a century ago. You can't do it all by yourself in your first few weeks. Believe it or not, Bob is a lot more reasonable and approachable than any of the other Belobrats were when I first started work with him, and he's much easier to deal with than any replacement from Hellesphere might be. I don't know Aglo as well yet, but I think she just wants your attention, and isn't getting enough of it at the moment. If you gave into it too from time to time, I'm sure it would help.
I sighed. You make some good points as always, Vice President. We'll see.
Oh, good,
said my Vice President, brightening up.
Now I can tell Bob there won't be any repercussions from the fraud you've uncovered, and Aglo could have a food replicator machine installed, and everybody's happy. Perfect. Now that's diplomacy in action at President Eleron.
Wait a minute, I said. I'm not happy. I'm also not too convinced the electorate would be quite so happy if I told them how their money is being spent. Horace shrugged.
There's an obvious answer then, isn't there, sir? Don't tell them.
I looked Horace squarely in the eye. What about the foot sard you've injected into me that's recording everything?
Oh, that, he said. Every official who's tagged as being in the same room with the recordings you make have to give their agreement to have it released. I just won't give mine when the recording comes to be released.
I was shocked. But that's hardly transparent government, is it? I said, which was exactly what we were hired for. What's the point of making recordings at all if we're only going to release part of them? It's what I want for everyone too. Our universe deserves to know where the hard-earned money goes and what we do with it. A true leader has no secrets from its people. Horace shrugged again.
Well, not knowing about some things that are scary also makes the electorate happy. And wouldn't you agree that's the most important thing? You said so in your speeches, didn't you? We wouldn't want to upset the club hearts with something scary.
Well, I said, knowing Horace had me there. Yes, but the club de Hardits are tougher than we give them credit for, you know.
If you ask me, all our universe is like club de Hardits hiding under metaphorical tables, and we like to think. And it's settled,
he said, grinning.
Let me go and tell Bob the good news.
There's more to politics than making people happy. I finished my sentence in my head as Horace ran off. Aglo had still been in a mood with me when I'd finally gone to bed that night, and she had pretended not to hear me at all. She had, however, left her suitcases packed for a beauty pageant, and purposely left them out where I would trip over them. It had been a very cold and lonely night spent back sleeping on a sofa that had multiple piles of boxes still piled on it. I tried looking into the mirror, as I often did on Mars when trying to view myself dispassionately and meditate, but all I could see was a figure in the bed distracting me. Given that Aglo had turned away from me, physically and metaphorically, I tried to do the same and rolled over to stare out the window instead. I felt so trapped. When I was on Mars, I'd always wanted to be on another planet, to do what my mother had done before me and make a new life for myself somewhere else I'd never been to before, surrounded by people who weren't like me. And I'd spent a lot of my spare time staring out of the window at the stars and the life that this other imaginary me was having enviously. Now, though, I found myself staring out the window several light years away, yearning for home, and thinking jealously of all the people who were leading the life I had given up to be here, in this prison cell. Even staring at the stars, the one thing that always made me dream the impossible, didn't excite me anymore. They didn't seem to twinkle quite as brightly in the Decreeta sky as they did on the Mrasianart one, what with all the fog around, and there were no crystals for them to dance their light across, like there was at home. Suddenly everything seemed less hopeful and more despondent, and instead of feeling bigger, the way I usually felt when staring up at the night sky, I felt smaller and less important, the opposite of what I thought taking this job would do for me. As I stared outside into the darkness, I contemplated what a really good politician would do in my situation. I remembered the words of advice that Aliath had once given me. When in doubt what to do for the best, go to the people and ask them, see what they really want. But it was no good going by what their representatives wanted, or what the state-owned media thought was for the best, or what any rich friends or family would benefit most from, but instead to travel, to wander far and wide, to talk to the majority of people whose voices were never heard. Too many politicians try to soothe those with the biggest mouths, he said, instead of helping those with the biggest hearts. Back home on Mars, I'd always felt as if I managed to stay in touch with the people, or at least some of them, with my smaller house smack in the middle of where everyone lived. Somehow, though, I'd lost that on Decreeta. Here I was only surrounded by other politicians and a wife, all of whom seemed to care more about appearances and being seen to do the right thing, rather than actually doing it. I needed to make contact with real people again, those who would remind me that my job wasn't fully done until everyone was happy, or at any rate as many people as I could help. As I continued to stare out at the stars, unable to sleep, I dreamed about doing what none of my predecessors had ever done, and visiting all the planets that encircled them. I didn't know yet how I was going to manage it, but I was determined to do it someday soon. I was more than a little suspicious of the amount of times Bob and Horace both wanted to get rid of me, and I blamed them for Eglow's sudden interest in a beauty competition that would keep her and possibly me miles away from Decreeta, perhaps for weeks at a time. I was afraid to leave in case of what might happen, and yet my soul yearned to be out there amongst the stars. I had become lost, and my direction was out there, somewhere. I was sure of it. Maybe I was wrong to stay so obstinately on this planet. Let Bob and Horace cook up all the plans they wanted. I was president. If I didn't like what they'd done in my absence, I could just make them start all over again. It wasn't as if I had much work to do here anyway. Not proper, productive presidential work anyway, I sighed. Odd fact, I'd always had far more work than this to do on Mars, and that was as an assistant on a single planet, not being in charge of an entire universe. I began to wonder if Horace and Bob were right, that I should get away, that no one would really miss me that much. Was that what a past president would do? Almost certainly it was what the Belobrats would have done, but was it for the best? I also wondered how everyone else had done it, by which I meant everything, all at once. How had my Belobrat predecessor been able to stand living in such a cold and drafty run-down building? How on Mars had the previous team ever got anything done at all? It was a wonder all the species weren't at war with each other already, given the conditions we were working in. And I reminded myself, for a lot of these species who weren't Mrasianarts, it wasn't all that long ago they were still at war with themselves. We were better than that now, though. Or so I thought. After all, how many of those stars out there were surrounded by worlds where unknown species had lived and died, I wondered, before they ever got the chance to make interstellar contact? How much bigger should this office be to accommodate all the species that had surely extinguished themselves through misuse, accident, or stupidity? No one seemed to know for sure, but it seemed likely there had been at least a dozen species that had destroyed themselves along the way. That was without being at war with each other too, something that had seemed a distant and unlikely proposition back on Mars when I had been campaigning, but now seemed a very real prospect given how fractious things had become between the 10 of us. Still, we were the lucky ones. How come we got to live and work in peace when those other civilizations hadn't? Had the Belobrats from the past government got some secret ability I hadn't got? Had they all just got lucky? I sighed, listening to Aglo snoring deeply from our bed that I had only spent 2 full nights in so far. People had always wondered why we had got together, and for a time I thought I knew. We balanced each other in all the right ways. Where I was shy, work-obsessed, driven by deadlines, and weighted by responsibilities and practicalities, she floated through my life like some beautiful bird, bringing confidence and lightness to my world. Together we had managed to support each other through all of our hard life on Mars, celebrating our status as outsiders and intertwining our lives around each other as we grew in the same direction. Here, though, with a different, more divisive enemy to fight, it felt as if we were outsiders to each other, and with a whole new universe to explore. I knew it would only be a small matter of time before she found someone else to intertwine herself around, greater and more interesting than me. Maybe she'd found him already. I'd noticed the look she and Bob had been swapping. I'd been lucky to have had Airglow's attention at all, but as much as it was me who ostensibly got this job single-handedly, I knew that wasn't true, and that it was the reflection I had from Airglow's natural glow, filling in all the places I didn't have, that had gotten me here. That was without considering Airglow's best interests, though, I realised. Suddenly, keeping her all to myself as she spread her wings seemed as wrong as caging a habridat and making it sing, like the earth fables of old. What should I do for the best, for everyone? Having talked to Airglow directly with no luck, I decided my only course of option was to talk to somebody about it, just as Jane had said to me while we were under my desk. Luckily, I have the whole universe to choose from. Consulting the Universal by half-hauling myself out the window, I spent my restless night researching all those therapists who might be best placed to understand my predicament, and hit upon a Camalosian doctor I quite liked the sound of, named Dr. Hooster, who specialised in hybrids. I fired off a request for an appointment at his earliest convenience, and my tired brain satisfied that I had at last done something to start solving one of the unfathomable problems that surrounded me, drifted off into a feverish sleep.
Universal entry AB54493649112. Mars Universal Systems key code Resident Eleron. Headline: Startle up a shuttle. Iconic to visit a planet near you. Retrieved from the Universal Records Office.
The next morning, I asked Airglow if she fancied a break from Decreeta and that I would go with her to her competition, on the proviso that she waited a few days, that I could also spend some time talking to the locals on Habridas. Then perhaps we could go travelling around the universe, meeting people together. She shrugged.
I might as well be trapped there as here.
She did seem happier, though, a tiny bit. Taking this as a sort of yes, I went in to see Horace, yawning my head nearly off and still stiff all over from another night on the sofa. He tutted absent-mindedly as I walked into his office, asking me to shush. For none too happy at being made to wait by my subordinate, I waited patiently until he had finished and deigned to look up at me. Horace, I started. 2 things. I've asked for a doctor from Camalosia to travel here. I will pay their fare, not the IPO, naturally.
I will, sir.
Horace didn't look too impressed.
There have been rumours.
No, I said. It's more for Airglow than me, though she mustn't know about it yet. I was thinking about what you said to me, and you're right. I have to do something.
Very good, sir.
Horace hadn't even looked up from his work.
And point 2.
I've been thinking. What I really need to do my job properly is to visit as many people as possible on as many planets as I can, to see what good we can really do for the universe, instead of staying here and signing things, which I can still do via the Universal, of course. To my surprise, he was beaming up at me, his work long forgotten.
Oh, what a great idea, Eleron. You go and talk to everyone and leave everything to us. Oh, I'll book you a shuttle straight away.
I hate to leave you here with everything so soon, I said, but I really think it's for the best.
Absolutely, sir.
Said Horace, beaming.
There's just one problem, I'm afraid. The Belobrat foosball team still haven't returned the fastest shuttle yet. They ended up taking a detour to Ziggurat's Free and playing their new team, 3 Sunderland. Only the older, slower shuttles are available, which means it might take you months to get round everyone. That won't matter though, will it, sir? You can make it a holiday and take your lady wife with you. My buddies on the Clandestron, sir. They're weaker as individuals and don't have as many star players as the Belobrat. Oh, but they work so much better as a team.
I snapped. Enough! They can get their own shuttle. I need it more than they do, and it's ours, paid for out of our budget. Get it here for me immediately, even if they have to break the laws of physics to get it here.
Very good, sir,
said Horace, smiling and looking me up and down, as if he was sizing me up, and had just got the better of me.
I'll make sure things are ready for you to go straight away. And Mike is quite an expert with shuttles and equipment. I'm sure he'll input the navigational controls for any planet you wish to visit.
Universal entry AB-medic-ST57384. Mars Universal Systems key code off-world visitors. Headline: medical update. Retrieved from the Universal Records Office.
Eleron, there's a doctor to see you,
said Horace the next morning, looking official and unusually early for a habridat.
He said it's by appointment.
That was quick, I said, startled, wearily hauling myself off the sofa, and relieved to find that Airglow wasn't there.
He said he was a therapist. You're not going mad already, are you, sir?
Horace raised a condescending eyebrow at me.
I mean, we have had our suspicions of our staff, but, well, we tend to what's normal for a Humrasianart. You're struggling with a job. I can take over for a bit. I'm fully qualified and...
I hushed him with a wave of my wings. It's not for me directly, as I told you. It's for Airglow, I said, not yet ready to take Horace into my confidence. It's a private matter, though, and I'm not going to say any more. Any way of switching this darn footsard thing off?
It shuts off automatically at certain set times of the day, sir, and personal appointments. I've taken the liberty of programming in your bedtime, bath time and mealtime, sir. But you can approve everything for your permanent record too, if you so wish. It's been programmed with swear words from all 10 known planets, sir, and will automatically start recording again if you use any of them. So I suggest you be extra careful about your language from now on. It is set to off once your visitor walks into your room, though.
Okay, I said, suddenly self-conscious. Would you have a good doctor sent to my office with some Camalosian and Earth beverages? Moments later, I greeted Dr. Huster, thanked him for coming so promptly, and explained that I had asked to consult him after seeing that his specialisation was in hybrid species. He was dressed in a giant floppy scarf and a fez, and wore what looked suspiciously like an Earth ruff, while carrying an earthly umbrella under one arm. The doctor looked at me like a predator licking his lips as he got out multiple notebooks and asked me to talk as much as I liked about my childhood growing up as Mras's only Humrasianart. Handing him a copy of Insurgence from a nearby box, I said that he could learn all he needed to know from there, but what I really wanted to talk to him about was my wife, Mras's only Mrasianbrat. The doctor leaned forward in his chair in interest, an earth bagel in one hand and a Camalosian pastry in the other.
Is there any earth porridge available? It's quite a delicacy on Camalosia. Bland, filling, monotonous, just famine-like coffee.
Sorry, it's off, I said hastily, not wanting to explain any more about the incident with the replicated machines. But do help yourself to anything off this table, and later I've ordered a full Camalosian lunch to be brought to you before your trip back home.
Oh, please feel free to elucidate me on the potential complications of malady in your chosen life partner.
I blinked. Come again? I asked.
It seems as though I'll have to endeavour to put this into simple Earth Mrasian terminology henceforward. Let's see, what seems to be the trouble, bud?
The doctor said, chewing on a graphite stick he had taken out of the pot on my desk in the mistaken belief that it formed part of our lunch. I'm worried about my wife, but I don't know what's normal for a Belobrat Mrasianart hybrid. It's hard to explain. Slowly I found myself pouring everything out while this most quiet of Camalosians listened patiently. I told him about how Airglow's Belobrat half meant that she always had to act as if she was the most important thing in the universe, and believed it too, but how her Mrasianart side gave her a complex about it, because she always felt as if she was never good enough. Also, while she was a pure extrovert the majority of the time, always keen to spend time with other people, occasionally she often hid herself away and didn't want to speak to anybody, including me. It was a tug of war that had become so exhausting for me, never mind what it must have been like for her. The universe was used to Airglow being the assertive, aggressive, confident, bubbly one in our relationship, someone who knew exactly where she was going, and probably single-handedly built the mode of transport needed to get there. Dr. Huster crunched his graphite stick thoughtfully.
I wouldn't want to dissect my patient when I'm not in their presence, of course, but I strongly suspect that she has what we practitioners are now beginning to understand as Belobrat trait dysfunctionalism syndrome type 4256398A, possibly combined with a touch of Mrasianart existentialism madness.
That makes sense, I replied, given that she's half Belobrat and half Mrasianart. What is it? I don't think I've heard of it before.
It's something we see a lot of with Belobrats at a certain age. Just imagine what it must be like to have three mouths chattering incessantly all the time, telling you to get out there and do things, extrovertly. When you reach a certain stage in life, when three heads have been bigging themselves up and saying how wonderful they are, it's bound to cause complex. I know if they seem positively alien to those of us like the Camalosians and Mrasianarts who mostly stay in our own heads. It's their way of coping with the universe, though, talking to silence of voices in their own heads and getting attention from all the other beings out there. For after you've seen the life and soul of the party, even the political party, you would guess that they're really tearing themselves apart when they go home. However, something has to give sometime in their life. This is a sign of what you might call a mid-head crisis. One of them is possibly out of sync with the others and isn't covering up as well, so she has to fill the empty silences with more chatter and pouting and arm-waving to keep her other heads quiet.
I blink. That's an interesting take, Doctor. I don't think I've ever thought before how tough it must be to have three brains all working independently. I have enough problems with one. Dr. Hooster ate the rubber plant on my desk before I had a chance to tell him it was made of plastic, burped and carried on.
Raspberry shrub. You don't see many of those. It's not just for their own heads either. You see Belobrats grow up in what other species would call a very unsettling and difficult manner. The parents and grandparents are always so full of how brilliant and special they are that the children feel they have to compete with them. And the only way they can compete is to lie and say how special they are, even when they don't feel it to be true. No one knows who the first Belobrats were to do this and what they were like before, but it seems it became the norm centuries ago. This has gone on generation after generation without end, each new group lying to themselves and everyone around them, until the Belobrats can no longer equate the person they are with the person they've been projecting themselves to be. Really inwardly, they are all deeply insecure, but they keep this hidden behind their ego. Over time, the patients grow up to have an intense dislike of themselves. First, they don't want to shatter the illusion that they're perfect. Instead, they take their frustration and disappointment out on anyone who is ever taken in by their act. The strange thing is that not just Belobrats get Belobrat personality dysfunctionalism. Other species get it too. It's plentiful in humans, for instance. It's just that, due to their upbringing, Belobrats tend to get it greater and harder than anyone and in bigger numbers. They usually grow out of it, they're left to their own devices. Usually one or other of the heads grows bigger than the others and shuts them up. However, with their glow, being part Mrasianart, and therefore so introverted and thoughtful, has probably only intensified things and made her stay in her head more, overthinking things, so she's staying in this phase longer than most. Or perhaps it's an external problem. Was there anything in the past to make her particularly troubled, do you think?
I snorted at that one. Well, let me see. There was a mad tyrant who was trying to banish and, for all we know, execute all families of off-worlders with hybrid children, so she spent the first few years of her life in hiding. She never knew her father. He was a Belobrat delegate who didn't stay on Mars after her Mrasianart mum became pregnant. She grew up a whole life, much like I did, being routinely teased for being so different to everyone else. She ended up leaving what was left of her family behind on Mars after she followed me for this job. Yes, I'd say that counts as a pretty upsetting upbringing to me. Dr. Hooster punctuated this thought by crunching on a nut.
I'm sure it was, but it explains part of the problems anyway.
What of the rest? I asked, concerned.
Her primary function is extremely extroverted, meaning she longs to be amongst people at the centre of attention. Her secondary function, though, is extremely introverted, meaning that she would rather shut herself off from people and spend time thinking things through. Growing up on a world of insular, thoughtful beings where her first instinct is to show off, and her subconscious wants to be left alone, has given her a bit of a complex. She's desperate for people to look at her, yet afraid they will. Getting this job, where she's sort of in the public eye, but nobody really knows who she is or what she does because the IPO isn't really that well known in the universe yet, seems to have pushed her over the edge a little. It wouldn't take much for those species pairings.
That's bananas, I continued.
No,
Dr. Hooster said, puzzled and looking at his food.
It's a nut.
No. I meant, I interjected before remembering the universal translator circuit still had a problem with the archaic Earth slang I'd learnt from my parents. The situation's nuts.
I know it is.
The doctor went back to his munching.
A lot of situations are, you know. Most relationships are, really, when you think about it. What are the odds that in a universe of 10 inhabited planets and quadrillions of beings, you'll find somebody completely compatible with all the quirks of yours created by millions of genetic variations? Nobody said being alive meant everything would be logical. That was never part of the agreement for being born. I'm surprised so many people seem to think that it is. Well, actually, Mrasianbrat did say that once, I believe, but that was before he met all the other species out there. Even they don't think it anymore.
That's nuts, I said.
No, the doctor said, confused. That really is a banana this time.
I decided to come straight out with it and ask the question that had been on my mind all this time. How do I make her happy? The doctor chewed things over.
In my experience, Belobrats are hard to keep happy. That's why they try to pretend to be happy so very, very hard, to sound happy sometimes. They fool a lot of people, they're never fully themselves. I'm not sure the odds are all that much better with Mrasianart. You're not the happiest species either with all that over-excessive worrying and thinking. You're both very complex aliens, perhaps alien to everyone else except yourselves. Putting both of your opposite species together must have left your wife with a feeling that she was in a permanent tug of war. And don't even get me started on humans, they're the worst of the lot. Like all 9 personalities jumbled about randomly together in different amounts.
It's all my fault, I sobbed. If I hadn't been so naive, if I'd chosen a different career, if I'd taken more time to recognise the signs instead of being so caught up in being happy. I gave in to my grief before pulling myself together and looked up. One last question. Why don't the Belobrats just love their children more? I mean, that's the easy solution, right? Go to the heart of the problem and fix it from there. The doctor leaned back in his chair.
Who knows? The problem is it's gone back so many generations uncorrected now, most Belobrats aren't even sure what love is. And those who showed them love got treated the way you have. Don't forget, Ego's part Mrasianart, which is still unusual. It means she's going to be inside her head overthinking more than most Belobrats and just blurt things out and cope with it that way. These hybrid species have created so many new lines of thinking we've never had to consider before. Why, do you know, last week I had a Belobrat patient. He boasted about his brilliance so much that he gave him a complex, so he rolled himself into a ball and hid under the table to get away from himself. Of course that didn't work, so he yelled for his subordinates to come and help him feel less scared, or else he'd whack them. And on that note, I have a merciless giant to see in half an hour, and I'd like to be the intergalactic traffic, so I'd better go. Poor chap, half his family are convinced he's too fat and the other half too thin, so he's routinely starved or overfed whenever he stays on either side of his family. It's given him quite the complex. But then the universe will do that to you, give you complexes. We've probably all got one just from trying to cope with living in it. The doctor got up to leave and waved my thanks and apologies for bringing him this far out of his normal routine away, especially when I apologised for what must seem a very odd complaint. Not at all, he said, smiling. The way I see it, none of us are what we want to be. The pure personalities all fear they're too simple. The hybrid ones fear they're too complex. Goodness only knows what will happen when hybrid species start mating with one another. In my experience, we all look at the universe through different eyes. The hybrids doubly so. Just think how wonderful it would be if, instead of seeing it through one or two different sets of eyes, we could see it in 10. Just think how brilliant that would be. We both grinned at each other. Wasn't that through one of my speeches, I asked, and Dr. Hooster nodded. They've had more impact than you think, Eleron, he said, more seriously than before. Remember, your happiness is important too. You're not responsible for Airglows, but you are for yours. This isn't some diplomatic incident you can sort out by committee like your work. This is far more complicated than that. But there are only two of you in this relationship. Thank you, I said, and gave the doctor a big hug that seemed to surprise him. My heart and head simultaneously lighter and heavier than they had been in a very long time. It was later on that same night when we were tucked up in bed in our Decreetian flat and nothing was stirring, not even the sleepwalking Habridat. Well, Eglo was the one tucked up in bed. I was on the sofa. Again.
Eleron,
said Eglo quietly.
do you ever wish we were back on Mars?
All the time, I smiled. Things were much easier there. Not as much responsibility or weight on my shoulders.
No,
said Eglo thoughtfully.
life was so much easier then, wasn't it? No one to please but ourselves.
Well, I said, ourselves and several million Mrasianart citizens. But yes, there were certainly less people to think about, and the quadzillions of people out there now.
You know, sometimes, when I can't sleep, I look at all the stars in the night sky and think to myself, what right have I to keep that many people safe? Well,
said Eglo.
It's only right that somebody does, and I'm glad that somebody is you, Eleron. I know I've given you a hard time lately, but I love you really.
You too, First Lady, I smiled.
I do think I was wrong, though,
said Eglo after a pause. Why is that, I asked, drifting off to much-needed sleep.
I shouldn't have pushed you to take this job. I did it for my ambition as much as yours. I wanted to be seen and noticed and admired, but it's not turned out that well. Less people pay attention to me than they ever did on Mars. I really thought at one point that we would work together as a team. But instead you seem to have grown into your role, and I seem to have shied away from it.
Eglo, I said, laughing, I've never known you shy away from anything. It wasn't just you, and it wasn't Aliev pushing me either. I put myself up for this role because I truly believe that I could make some small difference in the universe and nudge it in the right direction for being a kinder, happier place. Suddenly I'm not quite so sure I have that power anymore, though. I seem to have bitten off so much more than I can chew.
You're turning into a Belobrat.
My wife laughed.
They always say that the reason we bite off more than we can chew is a direct result of having 3 heads. But I'm not so sure. I know what you mean now. It seemed a good idea putting ourselves up for this on Mars. But now it just seems to be going wrong.
I lean my head out of the sofa to look at her in the Decreetian moonlight. It's only going wrong so far. You have plenty of chances to put things right again.
I know.
Whispered Airglow.
It's just that I thought by doing this, we could both bring the universe a little closer together. Instead it feels as if circumstances are pushing the universe a little further apart. Even us.
Yes, I sighed. I guess that's the price you have to pay for dreaming big sometimes. The rest of your life gets smaller somehow.
I'm sorry, Eleron,
said Airglow.
I never meant it to be like this. I don't understand what's happening to me.
I'm sorry too, Airglow, I whisper back. I never wanted it to be like this either.
Will it be all right, do you think?
Airglow whispered back. Sure to be, I replied. The universe is bigger than any one of us, after all. It could look after itself with me there to nudge it, or not. It's not as if there's some big cosmic Decreeta-shattering event that only I can save, or then we would be in trouble. We'll get through this, Airglow, don't you worry. And I think you're perfect, even if... My voice wobbled. You don't. To me, you are imperfectly perfect, and I would rather be with you than anybody else in the universe. Good night.
Good night,
said Airglow, very close to sleep. For me, however, the night was long and difficult, and even counting all the differently coloured algebraphs in the universe couldn't make it go any quicker. Should I stay? Should I go? Was it best to keep a close eye on what Bob and Horace were up to, or leave them to it and save my marriage? I stared at the three-way mirror of Airglows, but all I could see was three different angles, all equally lost. One of them the back of my own head.
Universal entry AB 54493649999. Browse Universal Systems Key Code President Eleron. Headline 8 Dilemma. Retrieved from Universal Records Office.
Sitting at my desk later on, trying to ignore my disintegrating marriage and having run out of letters, and Mrasianbrat was having an existential crisis. He'd already written to me 8 times. And a Mechion wanted advice on stocks and shares in the peace business in the event of a war. Jane called at my door again. She'd found an odd document amongst the litter trays she kept in the private rooms, which she had gathered up from an assortment of waste papers she collected from the fire in our room. It was one of the parts that hadn't burned through fully, and she'd recognised the IPO seal I'd shown her earlier. The words were hard to make out, but seemed to suggest that there was a second bank account in Bob's name, to which funds had been transferred. The part that caught her quick, keen, glad-hearted eyes, though, was the stamp at the bottom.
Official IPO document not to be destroyed until the 27th century.
Given that we were still near the tail end of the 23rd, this was clearly a mistake. Or was it perhaps deliberate? Yeeping my thanks at her, I decided to go through some other old IPO papers that related to our headquarters finances. I had never really studied these, so I was sure that someone on my staff would have told me if there was a fault. But the further I dug, the bigger the number of major discrepancies I found, as well as a mysterious bank account that didn't appear in any official document. Curious, I went to have a look through Alik's most recent accounts, and it was still there. As it turned out, the official paperwork, which was still lying singed on my desk, was missing, with Airglow's wing print next to it suggesting she of all people had signed it out days ago. Puzzled, I went to visit Alik to ask him if he'd made a simple mistake, or if we had a bigger problem. He looked uncomfortable. Aha, I thought. Well, it might not be a smoking gun exactly, but it was at least something that had been alight, yet plainly shouldn't have been. Do you know about this? I asked Alik. He nodded, awkwardly for a Mechion. Is the file really missing, or is this just a cover-up?
I think Bob got Airglow to sign it out for the fire in your room, sir. He said we didn't need to keep it any longer, and it wasn't relevant anymore, so she could burn it.
That doesn't seem right, I said. Have you asked Bob about it?
I was asked not to ask, sir. I was told those finances were essential to a secret mission concerning the furtherment of peace, and I wasn't to ask too many questions.
I was shocked. You didn't think to tell me? Alik looked even more uncomfortable.
Well, logically, as I was being told not to say anything by my superiors, I decided they must know what they were doing.
Well, I said, calmer than I felt. That won't do in these days of transparent politics. Who was it who asked you to keep a secret? I know it can't be Airglow. She doesn't know anything about politics. If whoever it is can give me a good explanation, then it can stay a secret. Otherwise, this matter has to be thoroughly investigated for the good of this new era of transparent politics.
I wouldn't like to say, sir,
stuttered the Mechion. I'd never seen one this emotional before. I feared he was about to blow the emotional fuse all Mechions carried around in their robotic chests. I'm your boss. I'm the person whose secrets your duty is to keep from the others. Not that I'd ask you, or nobody gets to keep any secrets from me. Or at any rate, that's how things should work, logically. At least let me have a look at the remaining files myself. I might still be able to work out what on Decreeta is going on, I said. Going through them, I was struck by just how much of the IPO budget was going into this mysterious account nobody had ever mentioned to me. Even funds that had been earmarked for a supposed military army in case of an outbreak of intergalactic war had been placed in this account. Well, I thought to myself, at least the funds were taken from there. An intergalactic war did seem unlikely after so many centuries of peace, and following up this discovery I did indeed find that the IPO had no army anymore, just a bunch of retired Belobrats on reserve at some exorbitant wage. Still, even if it came from the military budget, I had long considered scrapping. This was taxpayers' money that wasn't going where we were told it was. There was more too. From my limited understanding of terraforming, the bills for Decreeta shouldn't have been anything like as high as they were. Tracing their source back as best I could, without the Universal to help me, I found both income streams were going into a bank account on Helisphere, and at a rather generous intergalactic transfer rate against the other intergalactic currencies too. I didn't really like confrontation, especially against Belobrats who always had an annoying habit of winning them. But I knew that, as a leader, sometimes I had to go through with it. I went to see Bob in his office and shut the door. We need to have a word, I said.
Oh,
He said,
you changed your mind about Airglow's pageant? I'm a bit busy right now, Eleron. I'll bloody do more of it getting to know you thing as soon as I've finished actually doing work to, run the universe.
No, I said, we will talk now, and you will explain this. I showed him the bank details. He shrugged.
Pension plans.
He said,
You know full well the algebra show and the officials who worked here before you lot with Belobrat. Well, this is their pay. The service is rendered.
No, I said, this figure here is the pension plan, and very generous it is too for such a long-lived, short-working species, I might add. Alike says that he was asked to keep quiet because it was a secret mission concerning peace. Now what was it for? Really? Bob smiled nastily.
All right, fair cop, President. I hope that snivelling little Mechion would stay true to his word but he wouldn't tell anyone. It seems you're kind of more gumption than I expected. Not that it would do you any good. It's not much anyway. It's for a peace mission. Just a little extra to make up for the pay cut I've taken and the cramped conditions I've put up with to stay on Decreeta. Plus upkeep for my action on Helisphere. That's the only real link to the olden days. I have rather important around here after all. The place would shut down without me. Also, you have no actual proof. I believe the files are missing. They are, I believe, your smoking gun. Or at any rate, they were on fire, but they just smoke now.
All right, I said, even though it plainly wasn't. Now perhaps you can tell me whether terraforming on this planet, which, I might add, seems to be slapdash at best, has been paid to the highest bidder rather than the lowest. Bob shrugged.
I fancy the company that run it. They're a fine bunch of Belobrats.
Yes, I said, fine Belobrats who just happen to be related to you. I did some digging. Bob shrugged again.
Why give the job to someone else to do incompetently when we could do it incompetently ourselves and get paid for it? It's just logical business sense. Go and ask the Mechion if you don't believe me about that.
Because it didn't need to have been done incompetently at all. There are a good dozen businesses I can name on Mars alone who would have done it perfectly fine.
Oh, well, said
Bob Frog.
That would be showing favouritism, sir. Very bad for your political image, bad.
Not to mention all the other 9 planets, I finished. Even the humans wouldn't have messed it up quite as badly as this. Bob shrugged.
Anything else?
He asked. Why, I asked. What else do I have to uncover? Bob smiled at me, showing off 3 large sets of teeth.
If you're not asking, I'm certainly not telling.
Well, I said, if you keep siphoning money off like this, the place will shut down because of you. This is taxpayers' money you're taking after all. I'm a nervous saying it was for a peace mission.
It is a peace mission,
said Bob.
My peace of mind. It's very important to me.
I I stopped thoughtfully and looked around the office for maybe only the second time. And another thing, I noticed how plush this office is compared to all the others. I thought it was just the publicity department that needed it for glitz and glamour and impressing planets with plans, but now I see that the publicity department is really bare, and it's this office that has suddenly turned posh. The plush lifestyle seems to have followed you here, Bob. Do you have any explanation for that?
Whatever do you mean?
Bob said, all of his 6 eyes wide open with innocence. I tried another tack. I seem to remember that you and the other Belobrats used to do a lot of advertising for commercial companies through the IPO. That has stopped now, hasn't it? Because I could get you thrown out for that too if you're still using them. Bob shrugged.
I still did offers, naturally, because of how good things were in the old days. But I'm part of the new look, incorruptible IPO now, or whatever it is we're meant to call it.
And what'd you do with those offers? I asked, as threateningly as I could.
I turned them down, of course. Morally, there's no way I could accept anything they offered me.
Bob lowered his voice.
On an entirely unrelated note, you ever need any good Algebra pet food, I know just where I can get you a really good deal, at only 3 quarts a bottle, and...
Enough. This stops now, I yelled, or you're out. Is that clear? Bob smiled again.
I've just built my new swimming pool, so I can afford to be generous and take a pay cut, and lower my income down just a smidgen. Purely for you, of course, Eleron. You really don't want to mention this to anyone else, though, especially outside the IPO. It would only look bad for you, President, if rumours of corruption from a key member of your staff got out. And what I did was entirely legal, not just offshore, but off-orbit. Just ask any Cavalosian financial advisor.
Bob got out of his chair, towering over me as he showed me to the door.
I think you ought to apologise for coming in to see me with such lies, Eleron,
He said.
but it will truly be the worst for you. You'll see.
Decretion times.
The Decretion Times, Tuesday, September the 2nd, 2081. Bother job, Belobrat. Today in the 3rd extract from our Meet the Team's newsletter is the turn of Bob to sit in our specially reinforced chair. In this interview, the Belobrat tells us all about how things have changed for the better at the IPO, his feelings on working with President Eleron, and his favourite algebra. Welcome to the Decreeta Daily, Bob, the new newspaper from the International Peace Headquarters. Are you having a peaceful day?
Do I look as if I'm having a peaceful day? What sort of inquisition is this, you stupid clandestine? Put that microphone down. Do some work for a change. We know that it's very important that we keep all this from President Eleron. I've more of that cake you wanted too. Wait, this is live? We can't edit this? You won't show it to anyone here, will you? Just on other planets? Well, that's all right. I don't give a stuff about them. Oh, well, just a little joke, readers. When you work at maintaining peace as hard as what I do, you're bound to start to do silly things. Silly, carefree, funny, cute, friendly. That's me.
Whatever you say, Mr. Belobrat, sir. You've been here on Decreeta since the beginning. What was the planet like then?
Oh, a shocking state it was in. Nobody had terraformed any of it, and there was no headquarters anywhere, just a lot of cold wind, rain and snow. It didn't stop me, though. I just kept ploughing onwards in the name of peace. After all, you've got to, haven't you? I owe it to all the little giddy-winkles out there, of every species, who are looking up at me with their big eyes saying, "Help me, Bob, only you can give me peace." Well, I wasn't about to turn them down, now was I? Sometimes I think my colleagues who arrived here after me don't know how easy they have it.
Quite. You worked under the old regime too. In what ways would you say things have changed under President Eleron?
Well, the old days were good fun. Lots of crazy parties, plenty of drinking and gambling. It was a wild ride. Things aren't like that anymore, of course. We are all disciplined here. Disciplined into doing my bidding. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding me. Oh, what laughs we have here. Ha, 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 ha. Come on, Lawrence. Join in, or else. Repeat after me. Ha, 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 ha.
What are your views of President Eleron during his first week in office?
Back when I was a tiny Belobrat in arms, my mummy took me to the circus to see the clowns, but really I wanted to see the ferocious algebra trainer. Eleron reminds me why I wasn't interested in clowns. You'll change that to make it sound good, won't you?
As I've already said to you, Bob, this newsletter goes out live. There's no way of changing it. Maybe people won't notice.
Eleron means well. There are times when I almost like him. There, that's the closest I'm going to get to doing this without being sick from all three mouths.
Finally, do you have a favourite algebra?
What, me? Oh, why would I? I can't stand the flipping monsters licking around my ankles all day. I mean, of course, I love all of them and kiss them and cuddle them up and wrap them up in big bows and give them lots of lovely names. I'll stop recording. I'll be coming back to my words with you later.